Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, the Luffy Fanfics, back with amazing fanfiction. This is the series of What If Marine Luffy Eliminate Dangerous Pirates. Now before starting, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. Marineford, Navy Headquarters. Boring, is how the day of 19-year-old Monkey D. Luffy goes. Ever since his ceremony of becoming an Admiral of Navy, his travels got very less and paperwork's got more. Not that he does them anyway. His promotion to a Marine Admiral is quite different from others. He didn't work for years to get to this position. Rather, he did so much work in his 8 years service at Navy has gotten him this position along with his sworn brothers, Admiral Porpoise D'Ace and Admiral Sabo. Though the two brothers are well known in outside world, Luffy's position and his achievements are kept really secretive, known only to high-ranking officers and 5 elders. His achievements were primarily based on his works in CP9 and more stealthy missions. He enjoyed them, but he also wanted to go out and enjoy the sea. He was eagerly waiting to turn 18. When he worked with CP9, he was known by the name Scarlet Demon due to his signature red mask. It has been announced to the world that there are 3 new admirals, but Luffy's name wasn't announced to public. Instead, he was announced by his epithet to the world. It has been a rumor for a long time on who could be behind the name Scarlet Demon. Luffy made a deal with Fleet Admiral Sengoku that once he turns 18, he would be allowed to go on voyages and would be allowed to publicly announce him as an admiral. Luffy requested Sengoku for a 6-month break before he gets officially announced, revealed as an admiral. He wanted to visit East Blue and go for a patrol around East Blue while he is there. Sengoku-san, please let me go alone for 6 months. I don't want so many guys around me while I visit East Blue. You know I am strong enough to protect myself. Luffy whined. I know you are strong, but you are very irresponsible when it comes to other stuff. Sengoku replied. But I have gotten my basics on navigation and cooking. I could manage myself. Also, while I am in East Blue, I could recruit some promising members and make a crew for myself, Luffy said. Ugh, alright fine. But you have to report to headquarters often and don't forget do not get into trouble, Sengoku said. Luffy gulped and nodded. Thank you, Sengoku-san. I told you not to call that damn brat, Sengoku yelled. East Blue, Fusha Village. I assume you will be on your own from here, sir, a Marine commander said. Yes, thank you for dropping me here. If I need anything, I'll request from nearest Marine base, Luffy replied. It's been so long since I went to Makino-chan's bar. Let me go and see her. I also gotta pay for my enormous meals back when I was 7. Kashishi. Luffy requested a captain's coat since he is not announced to the public as an admiral yet. Luffy removed his admiral coat and kept it under the bed in a small boat provided to him. Makino's bar. Luffy entered the bar and sat on one of the bar stools. Makino couldn't recognize who that was, but she could guess it was a Marine due to the captain's coat. Welcome, sir. What can I make for you? Makino asked. Orange juice. Orange juice. I thought he would drink some sake, Makino thought. Don't you recognize me, Makino-chan? Luffy asked. Makino observed his face closely. Luffy. She couldn't believe it. She saw Luffy when he was 7 years old before Garp took them to Marine HQ for training. She had tears in her eyes. She jumped and hugged him tightly. Shishishi, it's been a long time since I saw you, Makino-chan. How are you? Luffy asked. Makino broke the hug and replied, I am fine, Luffy. How are you? You look so strong now. Yep, I'm fine. I've been wanting to come to East Blue for a long time, but I wasn't allowed to go out till I was 18, Luffy replied. So, how long will you be staying here? Probably not for long. I have to go and patrol East Blue, then return to HQ for the public announcement of me becoming an admiral. Luffy said. Admiral. You're an admiral. Kashishi, yep. Looks like you have surpassed your grandpa in ranks, Makino said. They both talked for a while, catching up on stuff and talking about Ace and Sabo. Then someone very unlucky decided to enter the bar. Oh, looks like we are the only customers now apart from that Marine boy, said Higuma the bandit. Makino looked him with concern, but Luffy continued drinking his 3rd glass of orange juice. Don't worry, we are not here to cause trouble. We just want 10 barrels of sake and we will be on our way out, bandit said. Oh, I am so sorry, sir. We are fresh out of sake. We only have 2 bottles now, Makino said. Oh, then what is that boy drinking? Juice? Bandit asked. Yes, Makino replied. Bandit felt slightly insulted and embarrassed. He drew his sword out and broke the sake bottles in anger, spilling it all over the floor. Luffy was watching this calmly. You know, when you see a high-ranking Marine officer sitting in the bar, you should run back to where you came from immediately. Luffy said. Oh, what could a brat like you do to me? I am Higuma and I have a bounty of 8 million bullies. You should be afraid of me. Oh, he is one of that type. Well, 8 million bullies. That should be enough to pay off Makino-chan's debt, Luffy thought. Without replying anything, Luffy used Conqueror's Haki and made all the bandits faint. Only Higuruma was conscious and was panting, kneeing on the floor. What did you do? Higuma asked. None of your concern. Higuma the bandit. You are under arrest for disturbing innocent people and creating nuisance. Luffy punched him in the face and Haguma went flying into the wall and became unconscious. Luffy took his Den Mushi from his pocket and called a number. Hello, Commander. Did you set sail from Dawn Island? No, sir. We are stocking up now. Is there something I could help you with? I have subdued Haguma the bandit in Makino's bar in Fusha village. He has a bounty of 8 million bullies. Could you come here and take him? Also give the bounty to the bar owner, Luffy said. Yes, sir. I'll arrest him and give the bounty to owner. Thank you, Commander. Luffy ended the call and tied the bandits with a rope. They'll be going now, Makino-chan. I have to finish patrolling East Blue and get to HQ, Luffy said. Oh, couldn't you stay a bit longer? You were here only for 2 hours, Makino said. I am sorry, Makino-chan. I'll visit you some other time, Luffy said. Okay, Luffy, take care of yourself and be careful. Sure, Makino-chan. You too take care. Luffy set sail in his small boat which had a cabin stocked with food for 3 days. It was a pleasant day. The sea was filled with meat. Luffy dived into the meat and started eating them. He was a human black hole when it comes to meat. Then he felt like sinking into the sea. He couldn't breathe. Suddenly he heard a cannon fire which woke him up. He was dreaming. Ah, that was a good dream. Who fired the cannon? He looked around to see if there were any ships. He spotted a civilian ship and a pink ship which had a flag with skull and bones in it. Clearly it was a pirate ship. So Luffy decided to see what was going on there. He rowed the boat as close as possible to the pirate ship without anyone noticing, and used Jeppo to jump onto the deck. He spotted a small boy with pink hair, probably a year younger than him. That young boy noticed Luffy and immediately dragged him into a cabin without anyone noticing. Oi, who are you? What are you doing? Luffy asked. Ooh, my name is Koby. I work here as a cabin boy. Sir, you should not be here. Alvida is very strong. She could kill you. Shishishi, don't worry. I am strong. So, this is the ship of Iron Mace Alvida. Yes, I was taken here against my wish while I was fishing. I was kept alive only because of my navigation skills. Koby replied. If you are captured, why don't you escape? No. It's impossible. Alvida could kill me. Impossible. Luffy punched Koby's head lightly. Oh, why did you hit me? Koby asked. Just because you are a wimp. And I hate wimps, Luffy said. Can I know your name? Koby asked. Oh, sorry, where are my manners? I am Monkey D. Luffy. Luffy, sir, could you think I could become a Marine too? Koby asked. If you want and if you have the determination, you could become anything. Also, don't call me sir. I don't like it. Luffy said. I want to become a Marine and arrest all the evil pirates. I want to become very strong, Luffy-san. Who are going to arrest Koby? Alvida, a fat woman with freckles, and she was carrying a mace almost the size of Luffy. Koby paled at the sight of Alvida. Luffy just stared at the women. Luffy knew all the big shots in East Blue. Koby, who is the most beautiful woman in the world? Alvida asked. Koby, is this the whale called Alvida? Luffy asked. Everyone jaw dropped at this. Alvida's face became red with anger. Luffy-san, don't make her angry. She could kill you, Koby whispered. I haven't gotten your answer, Koby, Alvida said. Of course it is. Koby thought about what Luffy said. If you have the determination, you could become whatever you want. Then Koby replied. You are the ugliest whale in East Blue. Alvida's face became red as a beetroot in anger. Luffy started laughing loudly at Koby's declaration. This boy could certainly be a good asset to Marine. I couldn't take him under my care yet. He is still young for the seas and he has to do a lot of training. They'll put him in Gramps' care for now, Luffy thought. Why, you? Alvida swung his mace towards Koby. Koby closed his eyes in fear, but the mace didn't hit him. When he opened his eyes, he saw Luffy holding the mace with his hands. Alvida and other pirates were shocked to see this. No way. He stopped Alvida-sama's mace with bare hands. A pirate said. Who are you? Alvida asked, trembling in fear. I am Monkey D. Luffy, and you Iron Mace Alvida are in arrest in the name of justice. Surrender without ruckus and you will not be hurt. Like hell I would surrender, Alvida said and tried to pull her mace back. But Luffy held it tightly. He applied some pressure and the mace broke into several pieces. Luffy cocked his fist and punched Alvida in her guts, sending her flying towards the mast. She hit the mast and it broke into two. Alvida was unconscious. Luffy uses Conqueror's Haki to subdue other pirates. Koby, tie them up using some ropes, Luffy said. Okay. Luffy-san. Koby was shocked to see the power of Luffy. Luffy dialed up Marine headquarters with his Den Mushi. Hello, this is Monkey D. Luffy here. Hello, sir. How may I help you? I have arrested Iron Mace Alvida. I will say the coordinates of the ship. Send a unit and take them to prison. Luffy said. Sure, sir. I'll inform the nearest unit to arrest them and take them in custody. Thank you. Luffy gave them the coordinates of the ship and ended his call and went back to Koby. Koby had tied the pirates with the help of other Marines in the civilian ship. Koby, take all the food supplies from this ship and load it in my boat there. We will go to Shell's town and enlist you in Marines, Luffy said. Koby's face brightened up on the fact that he was going to join Marines. Yes, Luffy-san, right away, Koby replied. They both sailed towards Shell's Town, which would take 1 day of travel from their current position. 1 day later, Shell's Town. Here it is, Luffy-san. This is Shell's Town. I recently heard Pirate Hunter Zoro being tied up here. Pirate Hunter, huh? Let's see, Luffy thought to himself. Koby, do you know who is Marine Captain here? Luffy asked. I heard Captain Morgan is in charge of the Marine base here, Koby replied. The people of the town jumped away from the duo on the mention of the name Morgan. Luffy knew what it meant. Luffy-san, why did the townspeople get shocked on the mention of Morgan? Koby asked innocently. Koby, you need to know one thing. Not everyone in Navy is good. There are bad Marines and good Marines. At the same time, there are good pirates as well as bad pirates, Luffy replied. Koby wanted to protest on the good pirates' part, but he chose to stay silent. Maybe there are things beyond his knowledge. They went to a small restaurant and ordered food. While they waited for the food, Luffy decided to ask the owner about Pirate Hunter Zoro. A small girl called Rika told them that Zoro saved her life by protecting her from a vicious wolf that the son of Captain Morgan, Helmeppo, had. He also learned about the deal that Zoro and Helmeppo made. While this was happening, Helmeppo showed up at the restaurant and ordered free food. Luffy was visibly angry at this, but he kept his cool. Oh, also I am bored, so we'll execute Zoro tomorrow. Make sure everyone shows up to his execution. Helmeppo announced. I heard you made a deal that he would be released free if he stayed tied without any food or water for 30 days, Luffy replied, controlling his anger. Who are you to ask that? I can see you are a Marine. My father is a captain. I can do whatever I like. You cannot order me what to do, Helmeppo replied. Luffy punched Helmeppo and he was sent flying and hit a wall. He cursed Luffy and ran towards the base. Luffy-san, why did you hit him? He is the son of Captain Morgan, Koby asked. Luffy started walking towards the base. Morgan, he is not captain anymore. Marines are supposed to protect people, not harm them. He is a corrupt. Also, he has no rights to tie Zoro. I am going to release him and make him join Marines. But Luffy-san, he is said to be a bloodthirsty demon, Koby said. Luffy didn't reply anything. He walked towards the base. While they reached the base, Luffy sensed a weak aura in the field near the base. He jumped up the wall to see a man tied up. That's Roronoa Zoro, Koby said. The little girl Rika jumped up the wall and went to Zoro. She tried giving him rice balls, but she was interrupted by some Marine officers who were ordered by Helmeppo to throw the girl outside the wall. Luffy used Jeppo and caught the girl. Luffy was really pissed now. He jumped up the wall and went to Zoro. Who are you, brat? Go away. You are an eyesore, Zoro said. I am Admi, Captain Monkey D. Luffy. I have come here to release you. Also, I have a proposition for you. I don't want you to free me. That captain's son said he will release me if I stay like this for 30 days. Zoro replied. Did you really think he would do that? Luffy asked. Zoro-san, Luffy-san is correct. Helmeppo said he will execute you tomorrow, Koby said. That bastard. I knew he would do something, but I didn't think he would try to execute me, Zoro replied. So, do you want to hear my proposition? Luffy asked. What is it? When I free you, I want you to join Marines under my special unit, Luffy said. Why the hell would I join the Marines? It's because of them I am here in this situation. Zoro said. Well, it's up to you. You could stay like this and die, or join my unit and be free, Luffy said. Shit, I cannot die here. I have a promise to fulfill. Well, I guess I don't have a choice, Zoro thought. You son of a devil. Ha, okay fine. Get me my swords and I'll join you, Zoro replied. A wide grin spread across Luffy's face. He said Koby to untie Zoro while he gets Zoro's swords. Luffy used Zoro and went towards the base. He searched around the base. He eventually came across a girly room which had 3 swords at the corner. He took them and saw in the window that a group of Marines were aiming guns at Koby and Zoro. He jumped from the window and stood in front of Zoro and Koby. Captain Morgan was ordering the Marines to shoot. Luffy used Tekai and blocked all the bullets. Who are you, brat? Why are you helping them? This base is under my command. I can see you are a Marine. You are supposed to report to me and follow my orders here, Morgan said. I am Monkey D. Luffy, and Captain Morgan, with my authority, I hereby strip you of your rank and powers and you are under arrest for harming innocent people. Huh, you are a captain too. You cannot remove me from my position. You are to follow base captain's order when you are here. You will be court-materialed for this. Morgan grinned. Oh, don't worry about my position. I have necessary authority to remove you from this position. I am from Marine HQ, Luffy smirked back. Luffy threw the swords towards Zoro. Morgan ordered the soldiers to attack Zoro. While they hesitated first, on the fear that Morgan might do something to them, they charged at Zoro. Zoro held 2 swords in his hands and put a sword in his mouth. He crouched and blocked all the Marines' swords. I am free and I promised you I'll join in your unit. But if you ever try to go against my ambition of becoming the greatest swordsman in the world, I'll cut you up with my swords. Zoro said. Oh, that's awesome. If we are going up against strong people in the future, I would expect no less than strongest in my crew anyway, Luffy replied. Zoro grinned. Luffy used a blunt Rankyaku and pushed away the soldiers charging at Zoro. Why, I'll kill you myself. Then you will have no authority to take my ranks. Morgan charged at Luffy with anger visible on his face. I suppose that guy is easy to take down by yourself, right Zoro? Luffy asked with a clear smirk on his face. Zoro smirked back. You got that right, Captain. And by the way, Zoro turned towards Luffy. My full name is Roronoa Zoro. He charged towards the approaching Morgan with his hands forming a X. Nice to meet you, Roronoa Zoro, future best swordsman, Luffy said while smiling. Zoro grinned. He closed up the distance between him and the former Marine. Oni, Jiri. Zoro used his attack and cut Morgan. Blood flowed from the X-shaped cut going from his torso towards each of his shoulders. Nice Zoro, Luffy complimented. Then Luffy walked up to the group of Marines who were celebrating on the defeat of Tyrant Morgan. Who is the second in command of this base? Luffy asked. A Marine stepped up and saluted. I am second in command of this base. Commander Ripper at your service, sir. Luffy nodded and ordered him to arrest Morgan and put him in temporary cell. He took his Den Mushi and called the Marine headquarters. Hello, this is Monkey D. Luffy. I would like to request a Marine unit from headquarters to take back criminals and a corrupt former captain from Shell's town, he said with a serious voice. Hello, sir. Yes, we will contact the nearest Vice Admiral and tell them to pick up the accused from the base. And also, sir, we have been told to inform you that some pirates are creating chaos in Orange Town. Would you be able to look into that issue? The soldier asked. Oh yes, I am close by to Orange Town. I'll look into that. Thank you. Luffy ended the call and went up to Zoro, who was lying on the ground, exhausted. He called a Marine and ordered him to get some meals from a nearby restaurant and also get some clothes for Zoro. Then he went to Koby. So, this is it. We will part our ways here for now. Make sure to become a strong Marine and protect innocent people, and also, do me a favor and be a good Marine, Luffy said smiling. Koby nodded with bright smile on his face. This was his dream and he is finally joining the Marines. Luffy called the commander of the base and gave him the instructions about Marine unit coming to base to pick up Morgan. He also gave him a letter and told him to deliver it to Vice Admiral Garp. Then he went up to Zoro, who changed his clothes and was having meals. So, you are ready to go to our next destination? Luffy asked Zoro. Zoro has been appointed as Chief Petty Officer in Luffy's special unit. Yes, let's go, Captain, Zoro said, grinning. They walked to the boat and set sail to Orange Town. The Marines and Koby were saluting them at the dock. Luffy and Zoro were traveling towards Orange Town. Good thing Luffy knew how to navigate. It only took one day more than the usual travel time because Zoro couldn't distinguish between south and north. Yep, perfectly fine. They would need an actual navigator though. When they reached Orange Town, they could see the destruction made by the pirates. Town was empty. Everyone had left the home most likely. Buildings were destroyed. Luffy and Zoro walked through the town. They met the town's mayor on the way. So, you are the town's mayor. What happened here? Who did all this destruction? Luffy asked. Yes, Buggy pirates have been rampaging on this island for the past 2 days. I thought Marines wouldn't care about these guys, Mayor replied with a slight hint of fear. Oh, don't worry, we should have arrived sooner, but certain someone couldn't distinguish the directions and it took a bit longer than normal, replied Luffy while glaring at Zoro. Zoro was visibly sweating and gulped. Well, can't help it. Your navigation confused me, Zoro replied. Luffy was about to say something, but they heard a girl running at them shouting from a distance. She was chased by a group who looked like pirates. The girl approached Luffy and stopped. These guys look like idiots. I could use them for now, she thought. Captain, can't believe you came here to save me. Please help me, the orange-haired girl said to Luffy and ran away from them. The pirates stopped chasing the girl and instead approached Luffy. Luffy had a bored expression on his face. Rankyaku, all the 3 pirates flew behind and went unconscious. The orange-haired girl was watching from the roof and she was shocked to see such strength from a boy of probably her age. Luffy noticed the girl using his observation haki and turned towards her. You could have hurt us, you know, Luffy said with a slight frown on his face. If I wasn't strong, they could have killed me. The orange-haired girl felt a slight guilt in her heart, but brushed it off and replied, But you are fine now. Thank you for helping me. I am Nami, she introduced herself. I am Luffy. And this is Zoro, Luffy replied. Zoro? You mean pirate hunter Roronoa Zoro? She asked to Zoro. No, I gave up on pirate hunting. Now I am Marine. Nami was surprised at this, but she didn't have anything to do with it. So, she brushed it off. Oi, can we team up? Why don't I help you in defeating the pirates and in turn I get some of their treasure? Nami had made a plan in few seconds of seeing Luffy's power. She could use him as a distraction and loot Buggy's treasure. No thank you. We are strong enough to defend ourselves. Also, stealing from a pirate is still a crime and I could arrest you for that, Luffy replied with a bored expression. Nami's face paled a bit, but she wasn't going to give up. Okay, fine. I could help you with navigation and I get 25% of Buggy's treasure. Oh, you are a navigator? Yes, the best in East Blue, Nami replied confidently. Luffy was thinking, okay fine, I could give you 20% of whatever treasure he has, and in turn you help us in navigation while we are in East Blue, Luffy replied. 20% is low, it could barely reach 100k bullies. But she could get the map of Grand Line as well as some money. Something is better than nothing, right? She accepted Luffy's offer with a slight frown on her face. They walked towards where Buggy and his crew were stationed. Oi, Red Nose Buggy, come out, Luffy shouted towards the tent where many Buggy pirates could be seen. Red Nose, who called me that? Buggy was red with anger. I did, Red Nose, Luffy grinned. Nami yelled from behind. Idiot, why did you call him that? Don't worry Nami, me and Zoro are very strong. We could handle these guys by ourselves, Luffy said confidently. Nami then tried to sneak her way to Buggy's tent while these guys handle the pirates. But Luffy stopped Nami and told her to wait. He said she might get involved in crossfire and could get hurt. Buggy ordered Kabaji and Moji to attack the two marines. But before they could get near the boys, a strong intimidating wave passed through them and almost all of the pirates passed out. The only ones standing were Buggy, Kabaji and Moji. While Buggy was only sweating at this, the other two were on the floor panting heavily. Even Zoro and Nami felt the wave slightly. What was that? I need to ask him about this later, Zoro thought to himself. Buggy's eyes widened at this. He never expected someone in East Blue to have Conqueror's haki, let alone no haki in the first place. Moji and Kabaji stood up, breathing somewhat normal now, rushed towards Luffy and Zoro. Moji's pet lion fainted due to haki, so Moji used a whip and charged towards Luffy. He swung his whip towards Luffy, aiming to hit his head, but Luffy caught the whip and pulled Moji towards him. Moji tried to resist, but the overwhelming force pulling from that side overpowered him and he went flying towards Luffy. Luffy punched Moji in his gut and kicked him in the head. He hit the wall nearby and went unconscious. Luffy still had a bored expression on his face. Maybe Buggy could provide him a good fight since he has 15 million bullies as his bounty. He cracked his knuckles and walked towards Buggy. Meanwhile, Zoro was lazily defending against Kabaji's crazy antics. Kabaji thought himself as a swordsman and was very proud at it, but Zoro could only cringe at his swordplay. Zoro was getting quite bored at this. He was thinking of searching for booze inside Buggy's ship once his fight was over. So, without delaying the fight, he got into his stance with his arms making X and eyes glaring at the opponent. Kabaji recklessly charged at Zoro to kill him. Zoro dashed forward in such a speed that Kabaji couldn't track where his opponent was. Oni, Jiri, Zoro appeared behind Kabaji's back and sheathed his swords. Kabaji's blood spewed from the cuts he received from Zoro and went unconscious. Now all that was left was Luffy to deal with Buggy. Buggy was fuming with anger. One couldn't distinguish his nose and his face since his face was completely red. I don't know who you are, but you are going to pay for what you did to my crew. Buggy drew his knives and held them between his knuckles tightly. His arms separated from his body and moved towards Luffy quickly, but to Luffy it was dead slow. He casually dodged and kept walking towards Buggy. Buggy gasped at this, but he swallowed his fear and tried hitting Luffy. Bara Festival. Buggy's body quickly separated into several pieces and moved towards Luffy. Luffy dodged all the body parts and grabbed Buggy's head. His hand turned black and all the pieces floating in the air fell down. Buggy tried to release himself from Luffy's grip, but he couldn't get away. Buggy the Star Clown. You are under arrest for destroying this city and hurting people, Luffy said before cocking his hand back. He punched Buggy's head like a ball and it flew through 3 buildings before Buggy fell down and went unconscious. Luffy ordered Zoro to tie up ... put Buggy's body parts in a bag and tie rest of the pirates. Zoro nodded. Luffy approached Nami, who was counting all the treasure with bully sign as her eyes. So, how much do we have here? Luffy asked. 5 million bullies. Nami replied. She was thinking of stealing this treasure and running off. But once she saw how Luffy apprehended Buggy without even breaking a sweat, she knew it would be better to just stay and get the 20% that she made the deal for. So, how much is 20% of that? Luffy asked. He didn't want to do the calculation since it might take months for him to finish. 1 million bullies, Nami replied. Honestly, it was more than she expected. Though she couldn't get the whole 5 million bullies, she knew her life is also important. Alright, you could take your share and hand over the rest to the townspeople. Luffy walked towards the side and took his den mushy. He called HQ and reported about Buggy and his crew. HQ informed that the Vice Admiral, who is supposed to come to East Blue to take Morgan, will also take Buggy and his crew. Luffy was expecting that the Vice Admiral coming to East Blue would be his Gramps so he could pay him a visit before heading back to Grand Line. Even if he wasn't in East Blue, he would meet Gramps during his ceremony. So, he wasn't too worried about it. He walked back towards the town. He saw Zoro finishing up tying everyone with ropes. Nami handed the remaining 4 million to the town's mayor with a gloomy face. The townspeople thanked Luffy and others. They walked to their boat and set sail towards Next Island. Luffy inquired about Next Island to Nami. It was Gecko Islands. While they were traveling towards the islands, Luffy noticed Nami being very nervous and sweating profusely. While he didn't want to disturb the navigator, he desperately wanted to help her too. He moved towards her and sat beside her. "Hi," Luffy started the conversation, which was a bit awkward. "Hi," Nami replied. "Is being on this ship uncomfortable to you? If so, you could go in your ways on the next island," Luffy said with concerning eyes. "No, it's not that. It's something else. I don't want to talk about it," Nami said. She was shaking a bit and sadness filled her eyes. Luffy wanted to ask the reason, but he couldn't do it. "We are Marines. We help people. If there is anything that is concerning you, please do tell me. I'll do everything in my power to help you," Luffy said. "Thank you. But yes, this is not something that is within your power," Nami said. Even though she saw him defeating Buggy without breaking sweat, Arlong was much stronger. He was a fishman. This boy might not be able to defeat him. Luffy didn't want to push this any further and was just silent. It has been long since Nami went back to her village. Arlong sent Chu, Smelt Whiting Fishman, and an officer of the Arlong Pirates and another fishman to look for Nami. He knew Nami wouldn't run from her village, but he was tired of waiting for her to return back with 100 embolies. So, he ordered Chu to deliver Nami a message. "Your village will be destroyed in 4 days. If you want to save the village, bring 100 embolies within 3 days. Fishmen could travel at very high speeds in water without the worry of storms and directions of wind. They could also communicate with fishes to some extent." It didn't take long for Chu to find Nami. He also spotted 2 Marines accompanying her. Luffy sensed someone nearing his boat and had his guard up. Chu jumped on the boat. Nami yelped and took a second to recognize his face. It was a familiar face. "Chu," Nami said. "Nami, do you know him?" Zoro asked her. "Yes, I do know him. He is Chu, officer in Arlong Pirates." Nami was visibly tensed. This had never happened before. Was it just coincidence? Or was she taking too much time before reporting back to Arlong? Questions filled her mind. But Luffy was calm. "Oh, what pirate jumps on a marine boat without thinking?" Luffy asked. "Shut up. I am here to deliver a message. And besides, you 2 brats cannot hurt me. I am strong," Chu said boastfully. What message?" Nami stuttered. She knew it wasn't going to be a good one. "Arlong said that he would destroy your village if he doesn't receive your 100 within 3 days, Chu said. Nami's face paled. She had to collect 15 more to get her village back. And it will take 4 days to get to Kakoyashi village. "Baby, but I am very close to my target. Please tell him not to do anything. I will get the money as fast as possible and I'll pay him." I. She trailed off thinking for reasons. This is his final order. He is tired of waiting for 100 He will destroy Kakoyashi village if you don't pay up in 3 days, and he would make Konomi Islands as his primary base of operations for conquering East Blue. Nami tried to plead to him, but he was hit in his head with a strong punch from Luffy. His head hit the floor with a loud bang. "You are a pirate and you come to a marine ship. Talk about how you guys are going to destroy a village before me. And expect me just listen and let you guys do whatever you want," Luffy said with anger visible in eyes. Nami was shocked at this. She never expected anyone who was strong enough to hurt a fishman. Chu spit blood and tried to stand up, but the punch was so strong that he couldn't muster up strength to stand up. It might have broken his jaw. "No, Nami, you are going to regret this." You boy looking at Luffy. "Don't think my captain will be sitting quiet watching you hurt me. He will search you and kill you if some." Before he could say anything, Luffy kicked him in his guts and sent him flying into the sea. The other fishermen watched all this and swam towards Kakoyashi village to report the situation to village. "I am going to pay Arlong a visit myself," Luffy said. Then he turned towards Nami, who was crying, tears running down her cheeks like waterfall. "Explain." Luffy's voice was a bit harsh, filled with some anger. "Why do you care? You Marines are just corrupt. You don't care about people. You just act like you do," Nami yelled at Luffy. She took a knife nearby and started to stab her left hand where she had the mark of Arlong Pirates. Luffy held Nami's hand to stop her from stabbing herself anymore. But Nami didn't have any choice either. She could only ask help from these boys. While she did see Luffy beat up a fishman like it was nothing, she still wasn't sure about trusting a boy that she met few hours ago to make a miracle. But miracles can happen, right? Nami could only hope. She told them how her mother, who was a former Marine, was killed by Arlong and her deal with him. She said them that she had 15 embolies more to reach 100 embolies. But now that Arlong is going to destroy the village in 4 days, she didn't have much choice. "Luffy, help me," Nami said with tears running down from her eyes. He was her last hope. It could either go good or bad. "Of course, I will. I am a Marine," Luffy replied with pride in his eyes. They set their sail towards Kakoyashi village. "Arlong, just wait for me. Your end is near," Luffy thought, anger filling his eyes. It has been a day since they set sail towards Arlong Park. Nami's mood has gotten a bit better since talking to Luffy. She could only trust him for now. "Oi Luffy, can I ask something?" Zoro started. "Yes, how did you knock out all the members of Buggy's crew without punching or hitting them?" "All I felt was a shockwave. Oh that? Yes, I will explain it. It's called haki. It's a mysterious power. Luffy replied matter-of-factly. Well, that's it. It's a mysterious power. Nothing else to it. Zoro asked. Oh no, it is a doom. Luffy's forehead was red from thinking for a whole minute. Oi oi, don't stress yourself. Think slowly and answer me, Zoro said, but he was very eager to know what this haki was. Ah, got it. Haki is a mysterious power that allows the user to use their will for various purposes. There are 3 types of haki: observation, armament, and conqueror's haki. Luffy said. So, it cannot be used by everyone? Zoro asked with a slight disappointment in his face. No, everyone can unlock both observation and armament haki. It is a doormat power in your body, Luffy replied. Nami was also listening to this conversation. If those guys are going to fight to protect her village, she should at least try not to be a liability. Doormat, what does that have to do with these powers? Nami questioned. Luffy blinked at her question. He again went into deep thinking mode. I remember Gramps said something about this doormat thing ... ahhh. What is that? Luffy thought to himself. By any chance do you mean dormant? Nami asked. Luffy's face brightened up at that. Yes, that's exactly it, dormant. Nami facepalmed herself. For the 100th time, she questioned her choices. Are these idiots really going to save her village? Luffy continued his explanation. So, haki is basically the manifestation of your will. Observation haki allows you dodge and evade incoming attacks. Advanced users can even see a bit into the future. Armament. It allows to coat yourself in an invisible armor to block and defend against attacks. You can also coat your weapons, like Zoro's sword for increased damage. Luffy finished his explanation. Zoro's eyes widened at this. He smirked at the possibilities of him getting stronger. Oh, can you teach them? Zoro asked, hoping for an yes. Yes, I could teach you them, but I could only train you the way I trained. And it is a bit hard. It can involve a lot of pain and bruises. Zoro smirked at this. He could undergo a hell lot of training, if it means he could get stronger. Nami gulped. She didn't want her smooth body to be covered in bruises. But it is only for 2 days, right? Once they save their village, she doesn't need to go through this training. Yosh, then let's start with first normal physical exercises to strengthen your body, Luffy said. They were made to do push-ups and small exercises that could be done in their small boat. And we would need a bigger boat if we are going to train harder, Luffy thought. I forgot to mention one thing. You cannot train your haki before you unlock it. Haki unlocks through vigorous training or sometimes in critical life or death moments, Luffy said, and the other 2 nodded. They continued doing their physical exercises. 2 days have passed. They were nearing Konami Islands. Zoro and Nami wasn't really happy with their training. It was hard, which Zoro had no problem with, but there wasn't any progress made. But Luffy assured them that they made good progress. He said it will take longer than 2 days to even make the first step of process. This relaxed Zoro. Nami, on the other hand, was exhausted, but also nervous about facing Arlong. Kakoyashi Village. Shaha. Looks like Nami couldn't save this village, Arlong said, facing the people of Kakoyashi Village. Everyone was very nervous. Some were crying. They knew their death was near. Genzo picked up a huge metal stick and rushed towards Arlong to hit him. But Arlong was faster and hit Genzo in the gut, which made him drop the weapon. Arlong grabbed Genzo by throat and lifted him up. Genzo was struggling to free himself from Arlong's grip. Shaha, you really thought you could beat me with that? Arlong said, pointing at the metal stick. Then, let's start the destruction. Or should I say liberation with killing you, he said. Some tried to run but were surrounded by fishmen. Arlong cocked his fists back and brought it towards Genzo for a deadly blow on his chest. But before he could hit Genzo, he was hit by something very strong and flew back towards a wall and hit it. He released Genzo from his hold while he was hit. He was panting on the ground. Everyone was shocked. They didn't see anyone enter, but there was a boy who they assumed hit Arlong. He wore a marine coat and had a well-toned body. He looked unnaturally strong for someone his age. They saw 2 more people approaching them. It was Nami and a green-haired marine swordsman. Oof, we made it in time, I guess, the boy with marine coat said. Everyone, sorry I couldn't collect 100M in time. I could have, Nami said with tears in her eyes. But she was interrupted by people yelling at her. Why did you come back? You could have stayed in sea. Arlong couldn't have found you. You should have left the village and lived a good life somewhere else, they shouted. Nami was shocked to see this. She knew the villagers might know about the 100M bully deal since Arlong announced he would kill them if I hadn't brought that money. But she thought they would hate her for that. Ah, villagers, don't worry, you guys will be safe. They won't be able to do anything to this village anymore. The boy said. Who are you? Why did you come to help us? Marines are just corrupt. What do you seek in return? Genzo slowly stood up, but his breathing was a bit unnormal. Oh sorry, I am Monkey D. Luffy. Adam ... Captain from Marine HQ and the green-haired swordsman there is Roronoa Zoro. As for why we came to help you, that's what we do. We help and protect innocent people. I can assure you we are not corrupt in any way and we are just here to save this village from these pirates. Luffy assured. People gasped at the name Roronoa Zoro. Luffy pouted slightly at this. The swordsman was more popular than him. They heard sounds of rubble falling down. They saw Arlong getting up from the wall. Shaha, you really think you puny human could save this village? Fishmen are way superior than humans. We are 10 times stronger than you. You are not even a match for me. I could defeat you blindfolded, Luffy said, smirking. Shaha, you insolent brat, think you can beat me? How funny. Then, kill that boy and kill the villagers as well, he ordered the fishmen. Luffy sensed the fishmen approaching from all the sides. While they could take on the whole crew alone, they could harm villagers if they get in the way. He already requested backup. It might take a bit longer for them to come here. So Luffy let out a controlled blast of Conqueror's Haki and knocked out the weaker fishmen. Some were panting on the floor, whom Luffy assumed to be the officers. There was one more fishman who was barely conscious. He called out Arlong and said something to him before he went unconscious. Arlong's face scowled. He ordered his octopus swordsman Hachai to attack the Marines. Luffy looked at Zoro, who nodded his head before pulling out swords and went to fight the swordsman. He told Nami to fight Kirubai. She was really nervous, but it was to protect her village. So, she pulled out her staff and approached Kirubai. Zoro was fighting Hachai with relative ease. While the octopus had 6 swords, he lacked skills. Nami was struggling with Kirubai. She was defensive, barely blocking the attacks aimed at her. Luffy was just observing. Villagers were confused as to why he isn't attacking the fishmen. Nami let her down on the sight of a blue-haired woman, which gave Kirubai an opportunity to land a blow on Nami. She closed her eyes and braced for impact, but she never got hit. She saw Luffy holding Kirubai's hands blocking the punch. Kirubai was struggling to free his hand. Good work, Nami. I could have fought this guy by myself. But you needed training for future fights. That is why I told you to fight, Luffy said. Nami was a bit confused at future fights part, but she decided not to question it now. Luffy punched Kirubai in the gut. He fell down panting, struggling to get up. He slowly got up from the ground. Oh, I thought you wouldn't get up from that punch, Luffy said mockingly. He looked at Zoro, who finished his fight. He smirked. Luffy's hands turned obsidian black. He punched Kirubai in the face, which made him fly back a bit before he became unconscious. Arlong was fuming with anger. He saw all of his crew got beat up in front of his eyes. You are dead today. How dare you hurt my crew? My crewmate said you also hurt Chu, whom I sent to deliver a message. I won't let you live, Arlong said in anger. You hurt the villagers. I just returned the favor. Shahaha, it doesn't matter. I will kill you and kill all these villagers. You puny humans can't win against me. I am the strongest here. My strength is 10 times. Before he could finish his sentence, Luffy used Zoro to close up his distance and kicked Arlong in his face. He crashed into a house nearby. Could you stop your boasting already and fight me? Luffy said in an annoyed tone. Arlong came out the rebels. Fine, you asked for it. Arlong jumped with his mouth open to bite Luffy. Tekai. Luffy hardened his muscles. Arlong bit his shoulders. Luffy realized his Tekai might not protect him from the bite, so he immediately applied armament to his shoulders, breaking Arlong's teeth in the process. Arlong jumped back, but he didn't seem bothered by the breaking of his teeth. The villagers gasped as Arlong's teeth grew back. Shaha, sharks' teeth easily grow back when they break. Arlong jumped forward with his fists clenched for a punch, but Luffy dodged the punch and placed his hand on Arlong's chest. He spun Arlong backwards and crashed him on the ground. The ground vibrated on impact and Arlong spit out some blood. Luffy then proceeded to kick Arlong in his waist, which pushed him away a couple of meters from Luffy was. How are you tossing me around with such ease? I am a fishman. I am supposed to be stronger than you. Arlong stuttered in anger. I know about you, Arlong. Jin-sen talked about you before. He told you separated from them few years ago. But I didn't know you were hurting humans in the weakest sea of the world. How cowardice of you. Luffy spoke. Jinb, he is a disgrace. He became a government dog to become friends with humans when we are the superior species. We are meant to dominate. Arlong jumped and spun himself with his nose pointed towards Luffy's chest like a bullet. Sharks on darts. He aimed to pierce Luffy's heart, but Luffy held his nose with armament-covered hands. Zoro was carefully observing the fight. Arlong was shocked to see Luffy stop his powerful attack. He thought it could be due to the fact that he didn't have water to reach high speeds. He tried to free himself from the grip of Luffy, but Luffy applied pressure and broke the nose. Arlong screamed in pain. Luffy punched him in the jaw, sending him flying backwards. Arlong was under severe pain. The punch on the face might have broken his jaws. He yelled at Luffy and ran towards Luffy, trying to hit him with barrage of punches, but Luffy dodged them easily. He lifted his left hand up and held Arlong's fist. Luffy punched him in chest. This is for hurting for villagers, he said. Arlong might have flew back again, but Luffy held his fist and started punching more in his chest. Each punch might have broken at least 1-2 ribs. He released Arlong's left fist. Arlong was barely standing now. For all the sufferings you provided to Nami and this village. Luffy's hand turned obsidian black. Luffy used Zoro to cover a small distance between him and Arlong to get enough momentum and punched Arlong in his stomach. He crashed through multiple buildings before he went unconscious. The villagers couldn't believe what they were seeing. Arlong was beaten by a marine captain without even breaking a sweat. They were awed at the power of this young boy. They cheered at the Luffy and Zoro for protecting their village. Nami looked at the hero who saved her village with tears in her eyes. She ran towards him and hugged him. Everyone was a bit shocked to see this, but they kept silent. Luffy was happy to return the hug. Chichichi, what do we have here? Captain Nezumi approached the village. Nami broke the hug and saw the marine with hate in her eyes. That blue-haired woman, named Nijiko, was Nami's sister. She had told her Nezumi took her 85M from her tangerine grove. Luffy saw the expression on Nami's face. What happened, Nami? Why do you look so angry? Luffy asked. She told him how he took the 85M bullies that she had been saving for years, and also how he took money from Arlong to not arrest him for hurting this village. Luffy's face immediately frowned. He had an angry look on his face. Oh, you are the one who beat these guys, right? I can see you are a marine captain. Since these villages come under my protection, I am taking him to my base and his bounty belongs to me. Captain Nezumi, may I know which branch you are from? Luffy asked him. I am from 16th branch. I came here to arrest Arlong and his crew. So, why haven't you done that all these years? Shouldn't you have arrested him when he annexed this village? Luffy questioned. Nezumi became nervous, but he didn't show it in his expression. What rights do you have to question me? I do what I like to do, since you already defeated him. There was no need for me to defeat him, Nezumi tried to reason. I have all the rights to question you. In fact, Captain Nezumi of 16th branch, you are hereby stripped of your title and arrested for taking money from Arlong pirates. Well, what are you blabbering about? You have no rights to do that. Do you have any proof that I got 75 million bullies from Arlong? Nezumi said, sweating all over his face. Oh, good to know it was 75 million bullies. Luffy said with a smirk. Everyone facepalmed at the captain's poor reasoning. Nezumi became furious and took out his gun. I am going to kill you here. Then no one would know I got money from Arlong. Also, I am going to kill the villagers too. Luffy just used Zoro and closed the distance between him and Nezumi. He held the gun near the nozzle and broke it. Nezumi's eye widened at this. He was overwhelmed with fear. Luffy punched him in the face and he was unconscious. The Marines handcuffed him and took him to the ship. Luffy took his Den Mushi and called the HQ. Hello, this is Luffy. Hello sir, how may I help you? I would like to speak to Admiral Aokiji. Is he in HQ now? Yes sir, I will forward the call to him. Thank you. After a minute of waiting, the Den Mushi spoke again. Hello, is this Luffy? Ah, Aokiji-san, yes this is Luffy. So Luffy, why did you call to HQ to connect to me? You could have called me directly. No, I'm still a captain. I cannot call you directly. Luffy emphasized the word captain. Aokiji understood. So, why did you want to speak to me? I came across 2 corrupt Marines in East Blue. People are losing their trust in Marines. Luffy said in a serious voice. That's bad. What shall we do then? Could you talk with Sengoku-san and ask if he could maybe assign good Marines in East Blue? Okay, I'll see what I can do, Aokiji replied. Thank you, Aokiji-san, Luffy replied and ended his call. He ordered the second-in-command of 16th Branch Marines to arrest Arlong and his crew and take them to Cell. He told them to wait till a new captain will be assigned for 16th Branch. The next 2 days have been full of party. Luffy ate a lot and Zoro drank a lot. The townspeople enjoyed their newfound freedom. Luffy walked towards the hill in search of raw ham melon. To his disappointment, he couldn't find the raw ham melon, but he saw Nami sitting in front of a grave. Luffy guessed it could be the lady whom Nami saw as a mother figure based on her story. He went towards the grave. Hi, Nami. Nami was in deep thought. The sudden sound woke her up from the thought. She looked around to see a familiar face standing. Hi, Captain Luffy. Oh, please, call me Luffy. No need of formalities, Luffy smiled. Nami smiled in return and he sat beside her. So, this belongs to my mother, Bellemere, Nami said with a slight smile on her face, but the sadness could be seen. You have my condolences. Sorry I couldn't be here any sooner, Luffy said sincerely. Nami nodded with a smile. Thank you for helping this village. I can't imagine what would have happened if I hadn't met you, she said. Luffy smiled. I am sure you have done everything you could to protect this town. Don't feel guilty, Luffy said. Nami was shocked that he knew how she was feeling, but she felt comfortable around him. Nami nodded. So, you said your mother was a Marine. Will you be following her footsteps? Luffy asked. Nami looked at him surprised. But I am. I stole from people. I hurt people, Nami said. No, don't worry. You did this to protect this village. You also said you only stole from pirates, and they don't come under law anyway. What is your dream? And are you willing to follow it? That's what matters, Luffy said with a smile on his face. Nami couldn't help but smile back at him. I want to make a map of the world. That is my dream. But, she trailed off. But how could I be on Marines? I am not strong enough. she said. Oh, don't worry. I will protect you and make sure nothing happens. You will get stronger and help me protect people, Luffy said with determination in his eyes. Nami saw the determination on her eyes. Okay then, I am in your care, Captain, Nami said with a smile. Luffy grinned widely back at her. Luffy stood up and turned back to go to village. But before going back, but I am not going to let you free for the thievery. I have other things planned for you, he said with a smirk. Nami was sweating all over her face. Other things? What could it be? She thought. After some time, they stocked up their boat and was waiting for Nami to come. Genzo was standing aside Luffy. She chose to follow her mother's footsteps. You better keep her safe, else they'll find you and kill you, Genzo threatened. Luffy just laughed. Of course, I will never let my friends die. He spoke. Genzo smiled at this. Nijiko pulled Luffy aside and talked to him. So, is there anything going on between you and Nami? She said. Luffy just blinked. Oh, I guess you don't know anything then. She continued. Luffy tilted his face and spoke. What do I not know? Nothing. You better keep my sister safe. She said. Of course, he said with a smile. She nodded and smiled back. Luffy and Zoro boarded the boat. Nami shouted to set sail and they did the same. She ran past many villagers who were yelling at her for not saying goodbyes. She jumped towards the boat and landed on it. She then lifted her shirt to reveal a lot of purses and wallets which fell down. Villagers were surprised. They checked their pockets to see their wallets missing. Oi, you thief, everyone shouted, but they had a smile on their faces. She waved by at them. So, where do we go next, Luffy? She asked. What is the nearest island? Gecko Islands. Okay then, let's go to Gecko Islands, Luffy shouted. You don't have to shout for that idiot, Nami yelled back. Shishishi, sorry. Oh, by the way, Nami. Yes? What did you do with that 85 million? Luffy asked. Oh, that. I left in village for the villagers to use, she replied. Oh, I didn't think you would give you money to others. What a surprise, Luffy said. Zoro chuckled at this. Nami got angry. What do you mean by that? She yelled with sharp teeth. He just laughed at her. Nami couldn't help but let out a small chuckle as well. Gecko Islands. Let's go. They have been traveling for 3 days. They ran out of food on the second day. They finally reached Gecko Islands, Syrup Village. The trio got out of the boat and they heard a sound. Stop there, you pirates. I, Great Captain Usopp of Usopp Pirates, will not allow you to enter this village. This village is under my protection and I have 80 million subordinates. I can shoot you with my eyes closed. He aimed his slingshot at the trio with his eyes closed. You're lying, Nami said bluntly. Shit, she found out. Usopp said, sweating slightly. Also, you might need to open your eyes, Nami said. Usopp slowly opened his eyes and looked at trio. He immediately started sweating profusely. Marines, Usopp said. So, you are a pirate, huh? 80 million, you say. But I sense only 3, Luffy said. The 3 children hiding in the bushes ran screaming into the village. Oi, don't leave me here, Usopp said. I didn't get answer for my question, Luffy said in a serious voice. Usopp started trembling in fear. And no, I know, I am not a pirate. Heh, of course not. Good, if you were a pirate, I might have to arrest you. There was silence for a bit. Usopp was still sweating bullets. Luffy broke the silence with his stomach grumbling. He was rubbing the back of his head sheepishly while Nami and Zoro sighed at his antics. Oi, Usopp, do you where we can eat? Luffy asked. Usopp nodded and took them to a hotel. Usopp joined them as Luffy invited him. So, is there any problem with pirates in this village? Luffy started. No, pirates rarely visit here. If they come, I'm the great captain of. I just scared them off, Usopp replied with slight sweat. Oh, that's great. You are protecting the villagers. Also, is there any place where we could buy a new ship? There are no ports in this town, but you could ask the owner of the mansion on top of the hill, Usopp said. Then he ran off at a great speed towards the mansion. The 3 small boys who were supposedly a part of Usopp Pirates came to the hotel. They explained about the situation of young girl named Kaya and how Usopp helps her. Then Luffy and the duo decided to go to the mansion and ask for a ship. When they approached the mansion, they saw Usopp talking to the girl sitting in a branch. Oi, Usopp, Luffy shouted, and Usopp took notice of him. Oi, Luffy, what are you doing here? I came here to ask for a ship. Who are they, Usopp-san? Kaya asked. Oh, they are my friends whom I met a while ago. They are Marines, Usopp said. Oh, that's awesome. How may I help you? Kaya asked to Luffy. I would like to buy a ship from you if that's possible. Miss Kaya. Yes, I will instruct Mary, my butler, to show you the ship. If you like it, you can negotiate the prices with him, Kaya replied. Okay, that would be great, Miss Kaya. Suddenly, they heard a door open. Luffy couldn't see who it was, but he could see Usopp's face sweating slightly. What are you doing in this mansion? You have no permission to enter here, came a voice. No, nothing. I was just leaving, Usopp said. Miss Kaya, I told you not to talk with this liar. He is trying to talk you into giving him all your riches. He is just a son of a pirate scum, the voice said again. Kalidor, stop, you are going a bit too far. No, Miss Kaya. These people should be taught about manners. They are selfish people. Stop, butler. You have no rights to talk about my father. Usopp's anger was visible in his eyes. Oh, you are just a son of pirate. You should leave this mansion immediately and never return. Usopp was furious. He jumped into the building to punch the butler, but was stopped by someone. When he looked, he saw Luffy holding his hands. What are you doing, Luffy? Let me punch the shit out of that guy. Usopp, calm down. We will talk on this later. Anger is not the solution, Luffy said. He turned to Kalidor, who was confused as to how this boy appeared in front of him out of nowhere. You, learn some manners. This mansion belongs to her and she has every right to do what she wants. I assume you are her caretaker, but you must learn how to follow her orders, Luffy said. Who are you? How dare you come into this mansion and talk how I should behave? Kalidor replied with anger his eyes. I am Captain Monkey D. Luffy. I am here on patrol and to buy ship from Miss Kaya, Luffy replied. Kalidor looked at Luffy's coat now. He was sweating a bit. Oh, still you cannot come into these manners and talk how I should behave. You can leave now. I will inform Mary about this and he will show the ship. Luffy glared at Kalidor before he left the mansion with Usopp. Luffy went with Mary to look at the ship while the other three went to village. Usopp got separated and went to a cliff looking at the sea. With Luffy, it is a caravel ship that I personally built. It has a jib and a center steer rudder. It has 4 cannons, 1 in the bow pointing forward, 1 in the stern, and 2 pointing to either side. Mary said. Luffy looked at the ship with a big smile on his face. It's wonderful, Luffy replied. Glad you like it. I call her Going Mary. Shall we talk about the prices? Yes, how much are you expecting for the ship? 80 million bullies, Mary replied. Oh, that's a great price. I would like to buy this ship then, Luffy said. Then he returned back to the village. He followed Usopp's aura. Yo, Luffy said to Usopp. He startled a bit at the voice suddenly coming from his behind, but he calmed down. Hi, Usopp said with a gloomy voice. Look, I know you are sad for what that butler said, but I didn't want you hit him. He is worthless, Luffy said. Usopp looked at him. Why? He talked bad about my father. Like I said, he is worthless. You are a good man with kind heart. Usopp blushed a bit at this compliment. Then he smiled. Also, I feel something odd about that butler. I feel like I have seen his face somewhere, Luffy said, thinking. Then they heard voices. They looked down from the cliff to see 2 men talking. One looked familiar. That's Kalidor, Usopp exclaimed in fear. They heard their conversation on how they are planning to get the riches from Kaya and kill her. Usopp was trembling in fear and anger. So, he is Kuro of 100 Plans, captain of Black Cat Pirates, and he has a bounty of 16 million bullies. Luffy said. I knew he looked familiar. He is the one Captain Morgan of Shell's Town supposedly captured and executed. I will go and warn the villagers. They need to know pirates are coming. Usopp started to run towards village. Usopp, wait. Do you think villagers will believe what you say? I heard about you from the boys. They will just think you are lying. Luffy said. Usopp stopped. He had tears rolling from his eyes. What should we do then? If we let them in the village, they will hurt or kill the villagers and Kaya. Who said anything about letting the pirates inside the village? I will protect this village from the pirates. Just believe in me, Luffy replied. Usopp calmed down a bit and looked Luffy with newfound respect. They both went back to village and informed Nami and Zoro about Kuro and his plan. Usopp planted traps on the ramp which led the way into village. Zoro and Nami were training and Luffy contacted the HQ to inform about Kuro being alive and requested a marine unit to arrest Black Cat pirates. Next morning, as they expected, the Black Cat pirates arrived at the village. Usopp, I assume you are good at long-range shots, so take them out from the hilltop while Zoro and Nami fights in close combat, Luffy said, and Usopp nodded his head. Then he turned to Zoro and Nami. You both, don't attack recklessly and learn to minimize the use of your energy. They both nodded. The duo started attacking the pirates. Zoro moved in great speeds, cutting pirates left and right. Nami used her bow staff and knocked out pirates. The acting captain of the pirates, Django, was shocked to see such power from those two. He ordered Sham and Butcheye, officers of Black Cat pirates, to attack Zoro. The 2 brothers looked at destruction caused by the duo. But they are too strong for us. They could kill us, the brothers exclaimed in fear. I will use my hypnotism to boost your power. 1, 2, Django. The 2 brothers immediately let out a huge growl and advanced at Zoro. They hit the swords from Zoro's grip and the 2 swords flew from Zoro's hands. Zoro had only 1 sword with him and was pushed to defensive mode. Nami saw this and went towards Zoro's swords, but Django interrupted her. Luffy looked at Usopp. Help Zoro get his swords back. If he doesn't have all 3 of his swords, he might lose. Usopp rushed towards the swords. He threw the swords towards Zoro, who caught it with ease. Zoro stood his stance with arms forming an X-Oni. Jiri. Zoro attacked Sham, who spewed out blood and went unconscious. Zoro turned towards Butcheye, who was sweating profusely in fear. Zoro jumped with 2 swords in his hands parallel to each other horizontally. He cut Butcheye's torso, blood flowing out of it. Butcheye was also unconscious. Seeing this, Django was full of fear. Then he heard a voice. What is going on here? The voice boomed. Captain Kuro. Django gulped. Looks like my useless pawns couldn't even hold off a bunch of brats. Kuro said, I guess I have to clean this mess myself, he said as he took a pair of gloves with claws made of sharp katana blades. Kalidor, what is the meaning of this? Another voice said. He turned towards the voice to see Kaya standing behind him with pistol in her hand. Miss Kaya, you shouldn't be here. You could get hurt. I know about you. Mary said everything. Kaya replied. Oh, I thought he would be dead with my head. Looks like he survived. But that's no problem. He spoke. You are not going to harm anyone in this village. I won't let you harm innocent. Kuro. Luffy said in a commanding voice. You brat cannot do anything to me. I expected Marines would do something about this. I came up with another plan. Kuro smirked. Luffy started thinking about this another plan. Then he saw Django rushing towards Nami. He took his chakras and sliced down towards Nami, who clearly couldn't block the strike. But Luffy used Zoro and blocked the strike for Django. He hit him in stomach and he flew back, hitting his ship. He suddenly heard sounds of flesh tearing and blood. He turned towards the hill to see Kuro's claws piercing Kaya's stomach and coming out from the other side. Kuro lifted Kaya, who spit out glob of blood. Shit, I let my guard down, Luffy thought. Kuro started laughing. Ha, I knew you would rush towards your soldier to defend her. You already alerted Marines about my existence. So even if Kaya gives me here riches, I won't be able to lead a peaceful life here. So I will kill everyone here, starting with this girl. He put down a girl and brought another claw towards her chest to pierce her heart. But instantly he felt something hit on his side and he flew back. He hit the mountainside. He slowly woke up from the hit. He wasn't able to stand straight. He then saw Luffy looking at him with murderous glare. You, how dare you harm innocent people? You will pay for this, Luffy's voice boomed. Even Kuro felt a small shiver running down his spines, but he didn't show his emotions on his face. You can't do anything to me. I am way more powerful than you. Kuro vanished from the sight and went towards Luffy. No one could see him apart from Luffy. He was way slower than Luffy. When Kuro brought down his claws to hit Luffy, Luffy used Tekai, which broke his claws. Kuro was shocked to see this. How? No one could see me when I am moving that fast. How did you defend it? Kuro asked. You are nothing compared to my speed. You just use an extremely slow version of Zoro. Luffy replied mockingly. Kuro became furious. He crossed his claws and stood in a stance. Stealth foot. Kuro vanished and started attacking all around him. He cut some of his subordinates. He was moving a bit faster than before, but still slower than Luffy. Luffy used Zoro and punched Kuro in his stomach. Then he gave him an uppercut which made him go high up in the air. Then he came down at high speed due to gravity. Before he could land on the ground, Luffy kicked Kuro in the chest, breaking several ribs in the process. He was sent back towards the mountain and became unconscious. The pirates gawked at the display of power. Luffy used Conqueror's Haki to make them unconscious. He immediately rushed towards Kaya, who was lying with her head on Usopp's lap. Her breathing was erratic. She was barely alive. Usopp was crying. Kaya, open your eyes. See, Kuro was defeated. Now everyone is safe. Please, Kaya, Usopp pleaded. But there was no response. Nami was beside him. She was also crying, with guilt in her eyes. Had she not let guard down, she could have defended herself and Luffy might have stopped Kaya from getting stabbed. Luffy was thinking of a solution. He had a solution, but he wasn't sure if it works. Usopp, I think I have a way to save Kaya, but I am not sure if it will work, he said. Please help her. We could at least try to save her, Usopp said. Luffy nodded and rushed towards their boat using Zoro. He went inside the cabin. He had kept a box under the bed along with his coat. He opened the box and picked up a yellow fruit with golden swirls. He then went back to Kaya. Usopp was confused at that, but Nami could guess what it could be. Is that? It is a devil fruit. I don't know if it will help her, but we have to try. He sat beside Kaya and fed her a small piece of the fruit. It went down her throat. Nothing happened for a minute. Suddenly her wound started glowing in yellow color. The cuts closed off and blood stopped flowing. Kaya woke up and saw Usopp and his friends looking at her. She looked at her body. Her dress was drenched in blood, but the wound she had was gone. She was confused. She looked at Usopp with a confused face, waiting for an explanation. I gave you a devil fruit. More specifically, heal fruit. It is a paramecia type. That's how you are fine now without any wounds. I heard it could heal others' wounds too, Luffy explained. I thought devil fruits didn't exist. Thank you for saving my life, Kaya said. Shishishi, no problem. It's a Marine's duty to protect innocent civilians, Luffy said. He then turned towards Usopp. You are Yasopp's son, right? Luffy asked. Usopp flinched at this. He started sweating a bit. Why yes, how do you know him? He asked. Oh, he is the sniper of one of the 4 Yonko. Red hair Shanks. Luffy could see Usopp nervous. And don't worry, I am not going to do anything to you. In fact, I want to invite you to Marines, he said. Usopp's eye widened at this. Why? I am son of a pirate. Well, parents' actions don't necessarily mean their children would become the same. You are an exceptional sniper. You could join us and help us save innocent people. And you too, Miss Kaya. Your fruit will be especially useful for helping people. Luffy replied. But I am weak. I don't know how to defend myself in emergency situations, Kaya replied. Don't worry, I will train you. And nothing would happen to you either. I will die fighting before anyone could lay hands on my friends. Mary also arrived at the scene. Kaya looked at Mary. Mary, while I am gone, could you take care of Mansion? She asked. Yes, Miss Kaya. But I have to ask. Are you sure about this? Yes, Mary. I always dreamed of becoming a doctor and help others. This would give me a really good opportunity to do that. Also, Usopp-san will protect me from harm, she replied. Usopp had a slight blush on his face. Why, yes, of course. No one would hurt Kaya. I will become a great warrior of sea and protect her from enemies. Usopp replied. Luffy had a wide grin on his face. So, I take it as a yes. They both nodded. Okay, Miss Kaya. I will take care of the mansion. Also, you could take the boat for free since it belongs to Kaya, Mary said. Oh, that is awesome. Thank you. And don't worry, I will keep the boat in good shape, Luffy replied. Mary smiled at him. Usopp and Kaya went back to their homes to pack their things. A marine ship came to the islands. Zoro and Nami had already tied up Kuro and other pirates. A marine soldier exited from the ship and came towards Luffy and saluted him. Sir, I'm Commander Ripper from Shell's Town. Luffy recognized him and returned the salute. I came here by the orders of HQ to arrest Kuro and Black Cat pirates. Luffy nodded at him and pointed him towards the pirates. Ripper ordered the soldiers to take them to cells inside the ship. So, what are you going to do with them? Luffy asked. He didn't want Kuro to escape again. Sir, we heard there is a Marine Vice Admiral in East Blue. We will hand over the criminals to him, Commander replied. Luffy nodded at this. Usopp and Kaya returned with their stuff. They boarded the ship and waved their goodbyes to Mary and the young boys. What is the next destination, Nami? Luffy asked. It should be Loguetown, but we can't reach there in a single stretch. We may have to stop somewhere to gather supplies. Nami replied. I was thinking of getting a cook before going into Grand Line. Do you know any place where I could get a cook? He asked. Nami nodded her head negatively. Oh, it's fine. We will get one somehow, Luffy replied and sat on the figurehead. Others' sweat dropped. Usopp and Luffy were trying out the new cannons on their ship. Luffy sensed two people behind a rock at a distance. He told Nami to steer the ship towards the rock. When they approached near the rock, they saw two men behind it. One was lying on the floor. You, Marines, please help my friend. He is sick and hasn't woken up for 2 days. The one conscious spoke. Bring them on the ship. He looks like he has scurvy. Kaya said. The man nodded and brought him on the ship. Kaya told Usopp to make lime juice. Usopp did as she instructed. Zoro perked up to see who was on the ship. He recognized the faces. Yasaku, Johnny, Zoro said. Zoro, Aniki. The man named Johnny replied. Do you know them, Zoro? Luffy asked. Zoro nodded. I know them from my old days of bounty hunting, he replied. How did you join Marines, Aniki? Johnny asked. No idea, Zoro replied and went back to sleep. Others' sweat dropped at this while Luffy was laughing. Usopp gave Yasaku lime juice. Johnny made him drink it and Yasaku immediately woke up and started to dance along with Johnny. They got yelled by Nami. Do you know any place where we could get a cook? Luffy asked. If you are looking for a cook, Baratie is the place for it. But I must warn you, they are a bunch of thugs and former pirates from what I had. They might not join you, Johnny said. Baratie, eh? Then let's set sail towards it, Luffy said. Nami nodded. Fish, Luffy said. Yes, it does look like fish, Nami replied. They looked at Baratie. A marine vessel approached them. Oi, who are you? Are you pirates? A voice boomed from that marine vessel. Luffy came out of his captain's quarters and looked at the marine vessel. No, we are Marines too. I am Captain Monkey D. Luffy. The man's body stiffened. He immediately saluted at Luffy. I am Lieutenant Fullbody, sir. He spoke. Luffy nodded. Why are you here? I don't think there is any duty in these waters, Luffy questioned. Actually, sir, I am on off duty today. I am here with my date, he replied, hoping the higher officer doesn't order any work to him. Oh, that's fine. You can continue your date, Luffy said. Fullbody relaxed. Thank you, sir. Fullbody saluted and went back inside. So Luffy, do you know what dating means? Nami asked. No, he replied. Nami facepalmed herself. Why did she think he would know that? He might be intelligent when it comes to fight and planning. But these stuffs are out of his intelligence domain. They approached the restaurant and went inside. Luffy immediately noticed the glare the cooks were giving off. How many of you? A cook asked, approaching them. 7. All right. How are you planning to pay? The cook asked with an intimidating glare. Luffy tilted his head at this question. With money, of course, Luffy replied. The cook's face immediately brightened up. Welcome to Baratie, sir. My name is Patty. Please take your seat. Someone will come and take your orders soon. The 7 sat on the table that they were provided. A blonde man approached them. He looked at Nami and immediately started flirting with her. Luffy laughed at his antics. I am Sanji, Sue's cook of this restaurant. What do you want to order? He asked. Meat, Luffy yelled. Nami punched him in his head. Then the rest of the crew ordered their dishes. While they were waiting for the food to arrive, they heard gunshots outside of Baratie. A pale-looking man with guns on his hands stumbled inside and sat on the table. Bring me some food, you shitheads, he growled. Welcome to the restaurant, you damn crook. How are you going to pay for the food? Patty asked. Will you take lead? The man said, pointing his gun at Patty. So, no money. Then you don't get food, Patty said as he smashed the man through the wall. Luffy noticed Sanji going into the kitchen. He stayed silent. He watched Sanji going outside with a plate of food. Luffy trailed him behind. He silently watched Sanji feeding the man who introduced himself as Jin. Oi, cook, join my crew, Luffy said. Sanji and Jin jumped a bit in shock from the new voice. They looked up to see Luffy sitting on the railing. Jin stiffened up at the sight of Marine coat. What? Join Marines under my crew? I surprised at the offer, but I have to refuse. I cannot leave this restaurant for my personal reasons. No, Luffy replied. I refuse your refusal. A vein popped at Sanji's forehead and he was about to reply to him before Jin interrupted. So, I assume you are going to arrest me? Jin asked. He was stiff, sweating a bit. Huh, oh, you are Jin the demon or something, right? Well, probably I should. But how did you get into this situation? Luffy asked. We went to Grand Line, but we were destroyed by a single man. Our entire fleet was sunk. I was captured by a Marine lieutenant, but I wasn't given any food in there. I shot a Marine and released myself, Jin replied. Luffy growled in anger. Even if that man was a criminal, they had to provide food. They are supposed to be the sane ones. He was also angry at that man shooting a Marine. Alright, fine, I'll let you free this one time. Next time you show up before my face, I will arrest you, Luffy said. Jin nodded and boarded a small boat provided by Sanji. Sanji kicked the plate into the ocean, hiding the evidence, and went inside. It's been 2 days. Luffy had been pursuing Sanji to join Marines for 2 days, and Sanji just kept refusing. They ate their food from Baratie. Zoro and Nami continued their physical training, with Usopp and Kaya joining them. They had started out small. Kaya had been trying out ways to use her devil fruit more easily. She could now use her powers to heal others to some extent, but she couldn't use that for long. It's primarily useful for healing smaller wounds. Luffy and the crew were having their breakfast when they heard a man shout looking at the window. That's Don Krieg's ship. Everyone started to panic at those words. Some hurried outside the restaurant. They didn't want to risk their lives. The door flung open and 2 figures entered the restaurant. One was tall, bulky figure leaning on the smaller one. Please provide us food. I even got money this time. Please, he is dying, Jin said aloud. Patty started to mock Don Krieg for his weak state. Ha ha, this is the great pirate Don Krieg, huh? I thought he would be much stronger. He laughed. No, we are not going to provide any food. These Marines will arrest them and put to prison, Patty said, pointing Luffy and his crew. Sanji walked outside with a plate in his hand. Don Krieg was on ground due to his weak state. He placed the plate in front of the pirate. Eat. Jin looked up to see Sanji. Sanji-san. Thank you, he cried. Don Krieg gulped down the food as fast as he can. He then punched Sanji in his face, sending him backwards, crashing on the wall. Zoro kept a hand on his swords. Nami held her staff tightly and Usopp readied his slingshot. Luffy was just calm, observing the events happening. Don Krieg, this isn't what you promised. You said you won't harm anyone, Jin yelled. His efforts to calm down the captain were in vain. Jin's shoulders were crushed by Krieg's grip. Patty and Karn growled at anger and fear. They knew it would happen. Sanji, this is happening because you provided food for him. Ah, that feels good. I feel like I am back to my normal self. Krieg grinned in satisfaction. Nice ship, he said, I'll take it. Jin reminded him of the promise. My ship is all torn up. I would need a new one to continue my journey, and this feels like the one. Krieg said, I have 100 subordinates in my ship and they all are starving. I order you to prepare food for them, he said with a glint on his eyes. Like hell we would prepare you food, Patty yelled. Didn't you listen? I said I order you, Krieg said with an intimidating voice. The chefs were sweating at this. They didn't know what to do. Sanji got up and lit up another cigarette before walking towards the kitchen. Oi, Sanji, where do you think you are going? Patty interrupted. To prepare 100 meals, he said before he was kicked by Patty. What are you, his inside agent or something? Patty yelled. Ha, he gets it. Krieg grinned. Luffy's haki flared up. His senses alerted him of a new yet familiar presence coming towards the restaurant. His face took a serious look. Zoro noticed this. He asked Luffy about it, but he just shrugged it off. He heard someone firing a cannon. He looked to see smoke covering the place where Krieg was standing before. The chefs laughed in victory until they saw a golden-armored Krieg standing unaffected by the cannon. You think that could harm me? Krieg smirked before firing a weapon of his own. He then heard a thud on the floor. Owner Zeph, a chef, yelled. Here, take this to your crew, Zeph said. Did they say Zeph? You are red leg, Zeph, Krieg said. You traveled the Grand Line and returned safely. You must have a logbook that had the information of your travels. Yes, I am Red Leg Zeph. I was. Now as you can see, I am merely a chef. I do have a logbook. What about it? Mr. Can't Survive Grand Line, Zeph asked. Krieg growled at this with anger in his eyes. We lost in the Grand Line because we lacked information. Once we have your logbook, we will rule the Grand Line and I will become the Pirate King, Krieg said with a proud voice. They suddenly heard a loud laugh. Krieg turned to see a boy laughing at his words. You think you can survive in Grand Line because you have a logbook? Man, you are so funny, Luffy laughed. Who are you, brat? Are you here to arrest me? Then you might need to bring a fleet, Krieg smirked. Luffy chuckled. Fleet? Why would I need a fleet to destroy your ass? I might hit you already, but a hawk is coming for its prey. I would wait and see what happens. Zoro noticed the word hawk but kept silent about it. HMPH, just say you are scared. I'll go and feed my crew. When I return, I would need all of you gone out of this boat. And I'll take your logbook too, Krieg said, pointing at Zeph. Old man, you are Red Leg Zeph, Luffy said. Zeph turned to look at the boy. Yes, I am. Are you going to arrest me? He asked. Nah, you aren't hurting any people. And your food is yummy, Luffy said, drooling. But can we make a deal? What is the deal? I defeat that metal idiot. You let me take Sanji to travel the world with me, Luffy said. Zeph laughed. I thought Marines are supposed to protect people without any demands. Fine, you can have him if you defeat Krieg. Shishishi. Deal then. I am not something you can put a deal on, Sanji yelled comically. Suddenly they heard a loud sound. They all looked out the window to see the big galleon cut in half. He came here. He came to kill us all, a pirate yelled. Jin was standing at the entrance. His eyes, it looked like Hawk. He cut our ships in half though we didn't attack him. You probably disturbed his sleep or something, Luffy said. Jin looked at him in shock. Why would someone cut down ships because their nap was disturbed? Jin yelled back. That is the Grand Line. That was all Luffy had to say. Jin stared back at the Hawk eyes. It almost looked like his eyes were piercing through his soul. Another person was nervous and excited. Luffy could feel Zoro's energy. Luffy knew Zoro was nowhere near the level of Mihawk. He looked at Zoro. Don't try to stop me. I am going to fight him. I won't stop you. Just a warning. You are nowhere close to his power. You've got quite a long journey to reach him. Keep that in mind and then fight him, Luffy said. Zoro nodded at him. He knew Luffy wasn't mocking him. After he saw what Luffy could do, Zoro knew he had to train harder. But he wasn't going to ignore this opportunity. At the very least he could see how far his enemy is. Who the hell is he? Patty shouted. He hasn't seen anyone cut a galleon in half before. Dracula Hawkeye's Mihawk, Zoro said as he walked towards the cut-down debris floating, the world's greatest swordsman. Everyone's jaw dropped at this revelation. Usopp and Nami looked shocked. Zeph was surprised to see him here, but kept a straight face. Luffy was calm. A random pirate shot at Mihawk at an attempt to kill him, but it seemed like the bullets had been cut in half. Did he cut the bullets? The pirate said in shock. No, he deflected them using his blade. Zoro said, such graceful swordsmanship, truly deserving of the title. Mihawk looked at the green-haired boy standing before him, but he felt a greater presence there, a presence he hadn't felt in a long time. He looked on the deck to see a familiar boy standing there. Yo, Luffy grinned. Luffy, I thought you would be in paradise. Why are you here? Mihawk asked. Nothing, just gathering new Marines. Before the ceremony, you know, Luffy replied. Mihawk nodded at him. He was one of the rare peoples who knew Luffy's power and his rank. If Mihawk and Luffy were to go all out in a fight, Luffy might win. That's my new swordsman. I want him back alive, Luffy said with a glare. No promises, Mihawk said as he turned towards the swordsman. What do you want? He asked. I set sail to meet you, Zoro said as he unsheathed his swords. I am here to challenge for the title of greatest, he smirked. Ooey, 3 swords, green haramaki, is that pirate hunter Roronoa Zoro? A pirate shouted. Looks like you are famous in these seas, but if you are a competent swordsman, you would know you stand no chance against me, Mihawk said with a slight smirk barely visible to others. I know, I am here to know how far my target is, so that I could train better, Zoro said. Let's see about that. Sorry, but I don't have any swords smaller than this, Mihawk replied as he drew a knife from his necklace. Zoro gritted his teeth in anger. Then I'll make you draw your main sword, Zoro said as he approached Mihawk. He charged towards Mihawk Onigiri. He slashed all his swords towards Mihawk, only to be stopped by the small knife. Zoro's physical strength managed to push Mihawk back a step, but he couldn't budge anymore. You are kidding me. Is this the difference between us? Zoro thought. Zoro slashed his swords forcefully at Mihawk, but the swordsman gracefully deflected them. Torajiri, Zoro slashed forwards, but the swords never reached him. Mihawk's sword pierced Zoro's chest. Why didn't you step back? Mihawk asked. I am not sure myself. I feel like I would lose something important if I were to back down from this fight. Yes, that is called defeat. Then I don't want that. I would rather die than be defeated, Zoro said with determination in his eyes. Such conviction, Mihawk thought. You have earned my respect, Mihawk said. Kid, what is your name? Zoro placed his swords forming a triangle in the middle. Roronoa Zoro. Well then, I will fight with my black blade to honor your conviction, Mihawk said. Thank you I guess, Zoro replied as he started to spin his swords and charge towards Mihawk. Santoryu Aoi, Sans and Sekai, they both slashed past each other in great speeds. Everyone gasped at this sight. No one could comprehend what happened. No one noticed a small pick of black fading in Zoro's swords. 2 swords in Zoro's hands shattered into pieces. Zoro sheathed his Wado Ikemoji and turned towards Mihawk, stretching his arms wide. The other swordsman looked at him confused. A mark on swordsman's back is a shame, Zoro smirked. Well said, Mihawk grinned as he slashed Zoro down his chest. Everyone looked at him with shock. Blood spewed from his chest as he fell backwards. Zoro. The crew yelled. Kaya and the bounty hunter duo ran towards the water. Luffy was about to charge at Mihawk, but he felt Zoro's faint aura still present. That made Luffy relax a bit. The duo pulled Zoro out of water and Kaya immediately used her powers to control the bleeding while ordering Usopp to bring first aid. Luffy walked towards Mihawk. You know, I could have killed him. Yeah, but why didn't you? Luffy asked back with a slight smirk. Roronoa Zoro, I shall wait for you at the top. Travel the world and learn the ways. Then face me again. Surpass me, Roronoa, Mihawk shouted. To think out of everyone, he acknowledges him, Zeph mumbled. I think I found the best crew to send off this little eggplant. I guess that answers your question, Luffy, Mihawk grinned. So, your aim is same as always, I assume. Shishishi, yep, I will bring down all the evil ones down. I am sure you will. Oh, by the way, are you here to take down Don Krieg as well? Luffy asked. Yes, that's what I initially came for, but my boredom is satiated. You can take him. You sure? That guy has some bounty on him? Luffy asked once more. Mihawk thought for a bit. Then he looked at Zeph and ordered 2 barrels of sake. That is on you, Mihawk said as he got the barrels and seemingly vanished from the sight. Shishishi. That's okay with me, Luffy said as he turned towards Don Krieg. He is a coward running away from fight. What could a brat like you do to the strongest man in the world? Krieg grinned. PFFT. Strongest man. You can't even defend yourself from Mihawk. And you call yourself strongest man, Luffy chuckled. Nami, Usopp, get ready for the fight. Yes, they said in unison. Nami held her staff tightly and charged towards the pirates. Usopp started sniping pirates that were approaching Nami. Nami hit 2 pirates in the jaw and made them fall by tripping them over her leg. A pirate tried to hit her from the back, but she used her staff as leverage and rotated around, hitting the pirate in the side of the face, defeating him. She hit pirates with careful movements and trying not to get hit. The training with Luffy helped improve her physical strength output greatly. The chefs awed at the fight of the women. Sanji had hearts in his eyes. Suddenly, a man wearing diamond armor and 2 shields in his hands appeared from the water. Pearl, kill that girl and that sniper. I'll take down this brat, Krieg ordered. Pearl moved towards the Nami. She tried to hit him, but he blocked with the shield easily. He lifted his hand to hit Nami, but was hit in face by Sanji. Blood? No, this is my blood. Pearl yelled. I have never bled in my battles, and I have won all of them. Then, this would be your first loss, Sanji smirked. Pearl swinged his shield in attempt to hit Sanji, but he dodged them. Poitrine shoot Sanji was on his hands and kicked Pearl in his chest, making him stumble a few feet backwards. Pearl smashed his shields and sparks ignited his shields. He lit fire on the deck. He charged towards Sanji. Why aren't you afraid of fire? He growled. I am a cook. If I am afraid of fire, I can never cook a food properly, Sanji replied. Sanji again flipped onto his hands and kicked in Pearl's shields. But this time it went through and hit him on his chest, sending him flying at the sea. Pearl, Krieg shouted. You will pay for that, you damn chef. Nah, I don't think so, Luffy replied. Krieg growled in anger and charged towards Luffy. Luffy just blocked the hit with his left arm and punched him on the gut, making him knocking the man backwards. The armor was cracking. Jin tried to stop the fight by pointing the gun at Zeph, but was knocked out by Usopp with a sleep bullet. Sanji was standing near Zeph now. Watch this fight closely. These are the powers of monsters in the Grand Line. You will be going to fulfill your dream. Then you have to get to that level, Zeph said. Sanji was focused in the fight to reply anything. Who are you, brat? Krieg asked, his eyes red with anger. Me. I am just a friendly neighborhood marine, Luffy grinned. Then die from my hands, you filthy marine, Krieg charged at Luffy. No Tekai. Luffy took the hit on his gut and didn't even flinch a bit. Chefs and other pirates gawked at this display. Shigen, he used it on Krieg's armor, making it completely shatter into pieces. Krieg was fuming with anger. He took his spear from the shoulder pieces and tried to hit Luffy with it. But Luffy just caught the spear with his hands and crushed it. Then he could see his hands turning obsidian black. Wha? How are you doing this? Krieg asked. Told you, you can't do anything to me, Luffy smirked. I will kill you now. Krieg charged towards Luffy. Rankyaku. Luffy kicked his leg in air, sending a compressed air slice towards Krieg. It cut his torso, making blood flow through it like a waterfall. Krieg fell down on the deck unconscious. He is a monster, Zeph commented. Sanji's eyes were wide open at the display of Luffy's power. Luffy called the HQ and requested a ship to take Krieg and others to prison. He also demoted Lieutenant Fullbody to warrant officer. He then approached Zeph. Old man, I defeated Krieg without any damage to the ship, so the deal is still on, right? Of course, you can take that eggplant with you, Zeph said. What? No way. I have to repay my debt for saving you by serving this restaurant. I am not going anywhere, Sanji replied. I didn't save you so you can work for me. I saved you because you have to achieve the dream that I couldn't, Zeph said. But, Sanji tried to reply. No buts, go and find the miracle sea eggplant, Zeph grinned. Fine, you shitty old geezer, Sanji replied and went inside to take his stuff. Nami and Usopp filled up their supplies. Sanji returned and boarded the ship. Don't you want to thank them, Luffy asked. Nah, it's fine. Oi Sanji, don't catch cold, Zeph said. Sanji teared up. He got to his knees. Owner Zeph, I am forever grateful for taking care of me and saving me, he cried. Zeph and other chefs also cried. Let's meet again one day, you shitty cook, Sanji said with a big smile on his face. Oi Sanji, Luffy growled. Meat, shut up you idiot. Nami-san and Kaya-chan gets food first. Luffy sighed in defeat. Oi Nami, what's our next destination? Well, according to map, it's Loguetown, but unless you want to check other islands. She trailed off. Nah, it's been like 3 weeks in here. I guess I'll be moving back to Grand Line, since it would take 3 days. 4 days. Yes, 4 days to get to Loguetown. We will continue our training, and I don't we trained since our defeat of Arlong. Nami's face scowled at this. Let's start with training. Zoro, could you please explain what haki is to the new 3? Zoro nodded. One long explanation later, so Luffy spoke up. Now that we are clear with the idea of what haki is, I will also have to explain some other powers which has been exclusive for Marines. At least I hope it is. It's called Rokushiki techniques. Crew looked with utmost concentration. I will demonstrate each of them. Luffy stood a bit far from the crew facing them. Sanji, why don't you kick me with all the strength you have? Sanji hesitated a bit, but he followed the order. Sanji mustered up all the strength and went for a kick at Luffy's shoulder. Tikai, Sanji's kick landed on his shoulder, but Luffy didn't even bulge a bit. To Nami and Zoro, it looked like he used armament, but upon closer inspection, he didn't have any haki and still took Sanji's hit. Sanji went back and stood with the crew for the explanation. Now, how did you feel when you kicked my body? Luffy asked. Well, felt like hitting something strong, like a metal. Good. The technique I used was Tekai. I have used it before too while fighting. Not sure how many of you noticed, but basically, this technique hardens the user's muscles to the level of iron. It directly correlates to your physical prowess. The crew was in awe. Usopp could definitely use this skill to protect himself, he thought to himself. Next, this technique is called Jeppo. Luffy kicked the feet below and went high. First it seemed like Luffy just jumped high, but then they realized he was staying in air, levitating. Kaya rubbed her eyes to see if she wasn't hallucinating or something. Then Luffy landed back on the deck. This is basically kicking the air with superhuman kicks, basically making the air as a platform to make you fly in air, Luffy explained. Then Luffy lifted his leg and kicked. The air became sharp and a powerful projectile was sent towards the sea. This is Rankyaku. I used this against Krieg. This is also kicking at very high speeds and strength, sending compressed blades of wind. Nami, why don't you hit me now with your staff, he said. Nami readied his staff and moved towards Luffy. When she tried to hit Luffy, he moved away from the staff like a grass blade reacting to wine. This technique is Kami. It allows the user's body extraordinarily flexible in order to effect any attacks. Nami stopped hitting and went back to position. Now, for the most important of all, Luffy vanished from where he was standing and appeared behind the crew, making them yelp in surprise. How did you become invisible? Sanji spoke up. No, I wasn't invisible. I was just moving at speeds beyond what human eye can perceive. This technique is called Soru, Luffy replied. Sanji was a bit disappointed at not an invisible technique but still excited to learn them. There is also one more which I cannot demonstrate now, but it is called Shigen, basically pushing our finger at a certain target at very high speed, similar to a bullet. So, these are the Rokushiki techniques. Any questions? Luffy asked. Oi Luffy, why can't you demonstrate Shigen? Usopp questioned. Well, Usopp, if you are ready to get hit by a bullet-like technique, I would be glad to demonstrate. Usopp shut his mouth and gulped in anxiety, while other crew members shared a laugh. Alright, now that that's out of the way, let me formulate the training regime. And I would like to clear some things beforehand because I don't want to get any complaints later, Luffy said. Crew members sweated at the sudden change in his tone. I am all fun and casual at normal things, but I don't want anyone to disobey my orders unless it's extremely important. I don't think you will be receiving any orders from other Marine units since you are under my care. Why? I can't say right now, but you will know about it eventually. Also, I have to explain you all about the power structure of the Marines. The crew was staring with complete concentration. For some, Luffy looked like a teacher with a stick in his hand. Let me go up from the bottom. First, everyone starts as chore boy or recruit, who reports petty officers. Petty officers reports to their chief and warrant officer. This belongs to the sailor division. Then comes the actual ranks, starting with lieutenant, lieutenant commander, who reports to commander. I also expect everyone in my crew will be starting with commander ranking, meaning you will have authority over sailor divisions and the 2 ranks I mentioned now. Then comes the captain of a unit. For lack of better examples, Morgan and Nezumi crew gagged at the mention of their names. But aren't you captain yourself? Zoro asked. He was perceptive. Oh yes, right. I forgot that, Luffy replied, nervously sweating, which didn't go unnoticed by the crew, but decided not to question it. Then comes Commodore, Rear Admiral, Vice Admiral. Captains have the permission to sail under specific parts of the sea which are in their control, while Commodores watch over captains and report to HQ for any disturbances. Rear Admirals are powerful fighters and mostly cover the Grand Line, who in turn report to respective Vice Admirals. Vice Admirals are usually the ones who look up most of the issues regarding pirates. They usually know one form of haki and usually are masters in rokushiki techniques. Then comes the admirals or powerhouses of the Navy. Crew was at extreme attention, sweats running down their body. There are currently 6 admirals in Navy, basically representing 6 seas. 6 seas. I thought it is only 5, Nami questioned. Actually, the Red Line splits the Grand Line into 2 parts, New World and Paradise. Now before you ask why it is called Paradise, Paradise is usually referred to the first half of Grand Line. New World aka second half is way more dangerous compared to first half, almost as if being in New World makes first half look like Paradise, hence the name. Admirals are usually good in both the forms of haki with powerful devil fruits. They report to orders only by Fleet Admiral, Sengoku. There are other support staff like cook and doctors, but I am picking out the best to do both fight as well as do the task. Any questions regarding these? Luffy finished. The crew let out a huge breath. They had to process all these information. Zoro was having a hard time processing this information, but he did have a doubt. But Luffy, what if we are ordered by someone above the rank of captain, say a rear admiral or vice admiral? Do we have to report to them or? Good question, Zoro. When I am present with the crew, you don't have to report to anyone else above your ranks other than Fleet Admiral. But if in case I am not present with the crew, you have to answer to higher authorities. But I can assure you no one would disturb you with your dream if that's what you are concerned about. Zoro sighed and nodded in relief. He wanted to question more, but decided it wouldn't fetch him any answers for now. Alright, there are a few more things I want to talk about. While you guys are good friends among yourself and know each other, I still want to emphasize that you need to trust in yourself as well as your companion. Everyone will have to fight. While it is appreciated if you help your crewmate in danger, I do want everyone here to stand strong on their own. Like Zoro might not like his battle to be interrupted by others. I want everyone to trust each other with their strengths and weakness and choose the opponents according to that. Luffy then looked at Sanji and spoke. I know how you feel towards women and your views on them. While I appreciate your gentlemanness, I want everyone to be strong here, meaning even the girls get to fight. They are not staying behind because they are women. I know you won't hit any women. I will not ask you hit any either, but I will not entertain you disturbing others training while training the girls, which would involve hitting. Understand? His voice boomed with authority. Sanji nodded with a slight frown that he has to watch women get hit. But at the end it could mean they are getting stronger. So, Sanji didn't feel too bad about it. Also, I'll have to say another thing. While I am focused on saving people and being helpful to others, it doesn't mean I am a pacifist. I have killed people in past. This earned gasps from the crew, but didn't say anything. If it comes down to that, in rare cases, I won't hesitate to do it. So, you guys have to be prepared to face it. The crew just nodded, unsure of what to say. Speaking of hitting, the training is not going to be easy. It will go on from morning till evening unless you have other work. And I might not be the best trainer. I will train you guys in the way I was trained, which Zoro and Nami had a small taste of before. The aforementioned had visuals of them getting hit by a stick and covered in slight bruises. They both shuddered, one in fear, one in excitement. It is going to be a bit harsh. I'll work with Sanji to come up with a good diet for all of you. Morning training sessions will focus on rokushiki techniques and afternoon. Evening ones will be focused on haki. I would want everyone to take these seriously. Because we aren't just traveling here, we are risking our lives against several monsters to protect the innocent. I will expect everyone to give their perfect and strive towards the goal. And I will continue to help you with anything I could. Luffy's voice filled with determination and authority. Zoro's eyes glared with respect and Luffy looked as if he is a completely different person than he lets on. Nami slightly blushed a bit at the strong figure standing before her, filled with hope and determination. But no one noticed that. Usopp and Kaya looked Luffy in awe, and silently promised to themselves that they would get stronger and strive towards their goal. They nodded and their gruesome training began. Zoro and Nami had the head start, since they were focused on training their physical power earlier. Sanji was right behind them in physical strength, Usopp and Kaya trailing them. Luffy decided it would be best to teach Zoro with defensive techniques like Tekai and Kami since his power is concentrated primarily on offense. Nami was on the same boat, except that she was weak on offensive too, but the previous training had shown some significant improvement. Sanji's training focused on leg techniques like Soru, Jeppo and primarily Rankyaku. Usopp focused on improving his raw physical strength while Kaya 8. She was more fragile than any other crew member due to the poisoning of his previous butler. Sanji made a proper diet for her to follow to improve her physical state. Afternoon trainings were focused on haki, primarily observation haki. Luffy just made them group in pairs. Since they didn't have any training equipment like wooden bat, they just used their fists. One had to hit while other had to sense the attack and dodge accordingly. Usopp and Kaya were paired, but Luffy wasn't too happy with that pairing since Usopp hesitated a bit on hitting Kaya. Zoro was matched with Nami. They both had opposite effect. No one hesitated in hitting each other. If anything, they enjoyed hitting each other. Luffy himself trained Sanji, but also he didn't strain too much out of Sanji because he had to prepare the crew's meals. He had to find some way to balance out this situation. After the end of each day, they were just covered in sweat and bruises all over the body, but they didn't complain. Zoro looked like he could take on more training compared to others. Luffy and Zoro usually sparred until Zoro ran out of energy. Kaya also had been training with her devil fruit. She could now sprout small dandelions-like structures which completely healed any injuries for 5 minutes. She also could create a domain which healed basic injuries like small cuts and bruises. But her stamina was still very low, so she couldn't use her powers for long. She finished last of her medical books that she brought from her homeland. She had basic ideas about common ailments and how to treat them. It's been 3 days since they left Baratie. They would approach Loguetown by tomorrow morning. The crew had fallen asleep except Luffy, who was sitting on the figurehead glancing at the sea. He had been the watch on the night for 3 days continuously. He sensed someone walking towards him, but it was a familiar presence, so he didn't get worked up and waking up everyone. "Hey Nami," he said without turning his head. The poor navigator was shocked and stunned on her place. She ought to scare the hell out of Captain, but he knew she was coming. She came out of her shock and moved towards Luffy. "Hey Luffy, how did you know I was behind you?" she asked. "Take a guess." "It's a familiar concept," he said. "Haki." He nodded his head in confirmation. Haki also allows to sense the presence of people, not just to avoid people from hitting you. She nodded at his explanation. Haki seemed more and more useful each time they hear about it. "So, why are you here? Didn't you sleep?" Luffy asked. "Nope, just came to get some water. Saw you sitting here at figurehead, so I thought I could scare you. Seems like that plan didn't work," she answered, a bit frustrated. He laughed at that. "Better luck next time, I guess," he said, adding to Navigator's frustration. Nami let out a sigh and sat beside him on the railing facing opposite to the side Luffy was facing. "Do you think we will be able to protect more people?" "I am still too weak to fight anyone," she said with a slight frown. He could see her sadness. "I think it's what makes us, Luffy replied. "It's not whether we can do or can't do. It's more if I will do it, as long as I am alive. If I die protecting someone innocent, I won't regret it. I know I did all I could," he replied. Nami felt surprised by his reply. "You know, you are smarter than you let on," she said. He chuckled. Yeah, maybe. I just try to be cheerful and I want to keep the crew the same way. I don't want them worry all the time about what's going to happen next." She felt warmness in her heart. She felt relieved talking to the captain. His confidence and his affection towards his friends was like a blanket of warmth covered on top of them, assuring nothing will happen in the presence of him. "Thank you, Luffy, I feel much better. Also, I'll train even harder to protect more people." Luffy grinned at this. She couldn't help but smile with him. "Why don't you go and sleep? You have been talking night watch for 3 days now. You must be tired." "They'll take up the night watch for the rest of the night," Nami said. Okay then. It's not like I don't get sleep. I am used to being awake for more than a week or so due to my training," he replied. "Good night, Luffy." "Good night, Nami." The crew was on deck, watching as the island become bigger and bigger. "We are approaching Loguetown," Nami said. "Town of the beginning and the end, huh?" Luffy mused to himself. The ship was slowly approaching Loguetown. Luffy turned to the crewmates. "Everyone, I need to talk about what we will be doing in that island." Everyone's attention turned towards the captain. "Okay. This island is in the protection of Captain Smoker. His reputation is pretty good and his sense of justice is pretty strong too. So, I would like if you all behaved in perfect manners during our stay in there. We will be staying there for 2-3 days and then we will head off to Grand Line." "Any doubts?" No one replied, just nodding in affirmation. "Okay, next thing, the island has really good shops, so I would like to fill up our stocks. Also, I believe you guys have some stuff to purchase." He looked at Zoro. "You have to buy new swords, right?" Zoro nodded. Okay then, Nami, give him 500,000 bullies from our treasury. I hope that should be enough for you to buy new swords. 500,000? Why that much? Nami retorted. He needs good quality swords. Low quality swords would break easily, which is dangerous when fighting in Grand Line. Luffy replied. Ugh, fine. But you have to pay me back with 300% interest. Nami smirked. What? I won't be paying anything, you witch. Isn't that right, Captain? Zoro responded. Then I won't be lending you any money, Nami said. Luffy just stared at her. Fine, take the money, Nami huffed in annoyance. Zoro, also buy some wooden bats and some balls for training after you buy swords. Zoro nodded. Sanji, make sure to stock up on food supplies as well. I think you can do that from Marine Base. Luffy said. Okay, got it. Sanji replied. Usopp, get whatever stuff you want for your crazy tinkering. Also get some good quality guns. Usopp nodded. You two, pointing at Nami and Kaya. Ooh, well, get whatever you want. The guys might need some clothes. Get some shirts if you can. Also, though there are no rules about uniform, you will have to have Marine insignia stitched on the clothes. So, make sure to do those too. Okay, sure, they both said in unison. Well, first we will go to the base and report to them. Then carry out these tasks. Take your time. We will be staying here for 3 days. That's it. You have your orders. Luffy finished. Loguetown. They landed ashore and went to Marine Base. It took a very hard effort to keep Zoro from wandering off into random directions. Luffy had informed the base about their stay there beforehand. The base was busy with work, so none of them guessed they would be arriving so soon. They expected them to arrive a week or so after the call. Luffy walked through the door before he was stopped by a Marine soldier. Sir, may I know who are you? He then glanced at the captain's coat hanging off of Luffy's shoulder. Soldier's body immediately stiffened up. He was sweating. I am Monkey D. Luffy. I assume I have informed about my stay in this base, Luffy replied. Yes, sorry sir, I didn't recognize you beforehand. Marine soldier replied nervously. No problem with that. Can I know where Captain Smoker is? Luffy asked. He is in his cabin, sir. I'll lead you to him. Okay then, lead the way. The Marine soldier saluted and went ahead. Luffy and his crew followed him. Marines standing around saluted at the higher officer. Marine soldier led them to Smoker's cabin and left. Luffy knocked at the door. Come in, the voice growled. Luffy opened the door and went inside. His crew followed him. The man inside immediately stiffened up and got up. He saluted smartly at the younger captain. Luffy nodded back. Hello, Smoker, Luffy wished. Hello, Luffy. It's been a while since we met, Smoker replied. Both smiled at each other. Then Smoker relaxed a bit. Please, have a seat, he said to Luffy. Oh, come on, you know I hate these formalities. Especially between friends, Luffy frowned. Hahaha. Yes, I do know. Have a seat. Smoker grinned back. So, you cleaned up most of East Blue's top dogs, huh? Shishishi, yep. Nothing less expected from a man like you. But I am angry at you, Luffy said with a frown. Marine captain looked at him in confusion. Why? What's the primary rule of a Marine? Luffy asked. Ooh, capture pirates, Smoker answered, unsure why he was being questioned. Oh really? That's not the correct answer. Think again, Luffy replied. Ooh, Smoker went into his thinking mode. But he couldn't think of a proper answer. Saving people. People comes before anything. If you see someone in danger, you help them. Luffy answered. Smoker eye widened, but he was still confused about why this topic was brought up. Did you get reports on Kanami Islands being under the control of Arlong? Ooh, yes, I did get some reports, but I was busy here. Smoker was cut off by Luffy. Busy here fighting for your pride. Right, Luffy retorted. Smoker realized why he was being questioned here. But, if pirates enter Grand Line, he tried to defend. While I appreciate your service for keeping off pirates from going into Grand Line, you could have saved a village that was under the control of a pirate for almost 2 decades. Isn't it the first priority for a Marine? He questioned with an authoritative voice. Nami's face frowned at that. Yes, it was true. Maybe if some other Marine other than that Nezumi rat came to her island, she wouldn't have gone through all those struggles. Yes, I am sorry. I should have prioritized people over fighting off pirates. Smoker apologized. The crew's eyes widened at this. Luffy, he is acting like someone who is far higher in power, they thought. Well, no problem. I know you are a good Marine. Sometimes it's about prioritizing. So, it's fine. You had done a great job at stopping pirates here. Next time, make sure something like this doesn't happen. Luffy replied with a bright smile on his face. The other captain couldn't help but smile back. Thank you, he replied. He then called out a soldier and ordered him to show Luffy and his crew where their rooms were located. They then proceeded to carry out the orders they were given before they arrived at Loguetown. You are being rude, sir, a voice came through the streets. Zoro perked up to see what the commotion around there was. Zoro wasn't in Marine uniform yet. He had to hand over his clothes to Nami for stitching Marine insignia. Shut up. Thanks to that monster captain, our boss is locked up in jail. So, we will kill you to take revenge on him, another voice said. I understand. Then I will have to defeat you, said the first voice. Zoro pushed through the crowd and came on front to see what was happening. The first voice was a young woman looking at two tall men with swords drawn. Don't make me laugh. What could a woman like you do? One of the men shouted before charging at the women. Zoro's brows furrowed. He partially unsheathed his swords to defend the young women. But before he could charge, the woman unsheathed her own swords and slashed down the two men. Then she tripped and fell on her feet. Her sunglasses slid to Zoro's feet. Zoro's eyes widened. She is strong, but her footwork is terrible, he thought. He then bent down to pick up the glasses and walked towards the women. He stretched his hands to give back the glasses, but then he took a look at the woman's face clearly. It reminded him of someone he was close with at his younger age, someone he made a promise to. She looks like Kuina. Thank you so much, the women said. Zoro didn't reply. He just nodded and walked off. He was too shocked to reply anything to the Kuina copycat. Zoro finally reached an arms shop after wandering through several streets in search of a stop. Seriously, what is it with these moving streets? He entered the shop and saw several swords, some being hanged off in the walls, some in barrels. Welcome, a bald man smiled at him. What would you like to buy today? Good sir, I want to buy some swords, Zoro informed. Take a look around. I assume you have enough money to afford these swords. The shopkeeper replied with suspicion. Yeah, I have money, Zoro replied before looking around to spot good swords. The shopkeeper's eyes fell on the sword on Zoro's waist. Is that? Why, young man, can I take a look at the sword in your waist? He asked nervously. Ooh, okay, Zoro shrugged before placing the sword on the table. This is awesome, he thought. Somehow I have to convince him to sell this. This sword has good quality. If you sell this, we could make some deal, he tried to bargain. Not for sale, the shopkeeper felt the cold gaze the swordsman was giving off. It's something that I inherited from my late friend. I will never give away this sword. Of course. Sorry, sir, shopkeeper replied, sweating. I knew it, another voice boomed. This is Wado Ikemanji, one of the 21 great grade swords. The voice felt familiar to Zoro. He turned around to see the Kuina lookalike staring at the swords. Why is she here? Are you selling this? The women looked at shopkeeper. No, this is mine. I am not going to sell this. This is far important than any grade value, Zoro replied with a cold tone. I am sorry, I didn't know. The women looked up to see the green-haired swordsman. Oh, we met before. I am Sergeant Major Tashigi. Thank you for giving me the glasses back then. No problem, Zoro shrugged before turning around to look at swords. He then spotted something at the barrel. He took it out to see it. Something felt off about it. That sword, I have seen it somewhere, Tashigi said, searching through her book. That's Sande Kaitsu, it's a grade sword. She looked at the shopkeeper. Are you selling that? It must be at least 1 million bullies. And no, I can't sell it, he replied. Why? Because it's cursed, Zoro replied. So, you know about it? Shopkeeper asked. I can tell, Zoro said. Yes, you are right. Kaitsu swords have been cursed since the first one shot Kaitsu. Many swordsmen died not being able to wield this sword. I'll take it, Zoro grinned while the other two looked at him confused. I said I can't sell this. Are you deaf? The shopkeeper yelled back. Okay, let's test it then. My luck or this sword's curse. Zoro tossed the sword into the air and stretched his arm, right below the sword's trajectory. Fool, take back your hand. Its sharpness is no joke. The sword spun and came downwards towards the swordsman's hand. But instead of cutting it into two, the sword spun around his hand and pierced into the floor. He'll take it, Zoro said with victorious grin. The shopkeeper stared in shock and Tashigi collapsed on floor, witnessing whatever that happened now. Only one more. The shopkeeper told the swordman to wait before he ran off up the stairs. Tashigi snapped out of her shock and looked at the swordsman. So, you use 3-sword style. You remind me of a certain bounty hunter. Zoro looked at her with a raised eyebrow. Oh, who is it? I might have heard of him. Roronoa Zoro, do you know him? She asked. I certainly heard someone like that, he replied. Before she could reply anything, the shopkeeper came running down the stairs with a sword on his hand. This is Ubashiri, one of the 50 skillful grade swords. I can personally attest to its sharpness. This is the best sword you will find here in Loguetown. Take it. Zoro picked up the sword and it felt light. He unsheathed to reveal a temper-patterned blade. How much for the swords? He asked. No, I don't want any money for the swords, the shopkeeper grinned. It's been a while since I saw a true swordsman, Zoro smirked back. He also got 2 wooden swords and thanked him. He then turned back and walked towards the door. Before he got out, he turned towards the women standing there. By the way, I am Roronoa Zoro, he said with a smirk before getting out of the shop. Tashiga's eyes widened at this revelation. With Luffy. So, this is where Gold Roger died, huh? Luffy thought to himself. He went out to go for a walk at Loguetown. Somehow, he reached the platform where Roger died. He grinned before jumping up on the platform. Whoa, this platform has a great view of the town, Luffy shouted. Excuse me, sir, I know you are a Marine. Then you should know this is world government property. You cannot stand there, a random Marine shouted before he was hit by something on his head. Luffy looked down to see a woman standing there glaring at him. Long time no see, Monkey D. Luffy, she said. Who are you? Luffy replied back. How can you not remember the most beautiful women in the world? She yelled. Luffy looked at her, then realizing who she was. J. Alvida. So, you do remember me, she replied back. Suddenly Luffy's senses screamed at him to move aside. And he did. Someone tried to capture him from behind. Observation haki is pretty useful in these times, he thought. He kicked the guy in face, throwing him down the platform. He looked down to see another figure approach the lady standing there. Do you remember me, brat? He asked. Luffy titled his head in confusion. Now, who is this clown? I am the great pirate Captain Buggy. I hoped for a flashy execution, but seems like I couldn't do that. No problem. I'll kill you on my own. Hey, Buggy, Luffy yelled back. How did they escape? He thought. He sensed Marines surrounding the area. He then looked up in the sky. Is this the era you wanted to create? Roger. With Zoro. Wait, stop. Where you are? Tashigi yelled, running behind Zoro. Zoro looked back to see the woman standing with her sword drawn out. You are a criminal. You should not be allowed to wield those great swords. Hand me over those swords now, she said. His face frowned heavily. He unsheathed his swords. If you want my swords, he walked towards the woman, then take it from my dead body. He charged at her. Tashigi couldn't react fast enough. She barely blocked the swords of the other swordsman, but the sheer force behind the attack sent her backwards, hitting a wall. Tashigi gritted her teeth in pain. Her sword was a bit away from where she was. Zoro glared at the woman. The sword is given to me in remembrance of my late friend. I am not just going to give it away to you. They'll die before anyone could take this away from me, he yelled out. He then sheathed his swords and started walking away. Tashigi felt insulted. Why are you leaving me here? Is it because I am women? She shouted. Zoro felt his anger build up. You are just humiliating me that you men are physically stronger than a woman. I don't carry a sword for pleasure. He couldn't hold of his anger anymore. I don't like your very being. Listen, you look a lot like my close friend who died long ago. And on top of it, she used to say the same thing you just said. Copycat woman, he yelled. He then looked her, turning his head, glaring with his eye. Also, I am not any sort of criminal, unless serving Marines is one. But this, he walked away from her, leaving the later filling with confusion. The execution platform was surrounded by people, pirates and Marines. They were looking at Luffy currently standing on top of the platform. Captain Smoker and Luffy's crew also arrived at the scene. Buggy was yelling something unintelligible from below. He was looking at the town. Tashigi also stumbled to the platform. She was standing beside Captain Smoker. Roger, I have heard a lot of stories about you and your travels from my grandpa. Although most of them are just boasting about how strong he was. There was something that I learnt from your stories. You didn't travel the seas to hurt innocents. You valued freedom. Although you are a pirate, I respect you. But now it's completely opposite. I guess when you were executed. Those words created what's now known as Great Pirate Era. Luffy thought. You wanted people to be free. Travel the seas. Be happy. But that's not what pirates do. They kill innocents. They annex countries. They think they rule the seas. This isn't what freedom is. Sometimes I wanted to be a pirate too when I heard your stories. But I think there is something more to be done. Something like that should never happen again. I won't let anyone hurt someone close to me ever again. So, Roger. Luffy breathed in heavily. He closed his eyes, concentrating. I'll be the one to end the Great Pirate Era and bring peace to this world, Luffy yelled. A thunderbolt crashed behind him and the sun shined behind him, shadowing Luffy's figure. Many people were dumbstruck at his revelation. Some thought Luffy was an incarnation of God himself, came to protect the people. They started chanting and praying at Luffy. Others looked at him, eye widened, jaw dropped. Some grinned. To say this at the place where Roger was executed. A person among the crowd commented, "He is the God's incarnation," another one yelled. Luffy laughed at this. He jumped down the platform and looked at Buggy, who was still in shock. Smoker ordered some Marines around him to bring sea-stone handcuffs. They nodded, still not fully out of shock. Smoker-san, who is that? How could he? He is. Tashigi spoke. She couldn't comprehend what was happening before her. He is going to bring a revolution. He is not joking. And he has the power to back it up, Smoker commented. But he is just a captain based off of his coat. How could he? Tashigi responded. Smoker didn't reply. He just grinned. Crew were also dumbstruck. Well, except Zoro. He was grinning madly. It took some time to come out of their shock. What was that? Nami asked, breathing heavily. He did look like some sort of god, Usopp commented. Luffy felt a really strong presence. His face frowned. A Marine came running to him with sea-stone handcuffs. He punched Buggy, who didn't see it coming. He fell over unconscious. Alvida tried to escape but was caught by Luffy. He then walked towards his crew, who were staring at him wide-eyed. Oi, why are you staring at me like that? Oh, nothing, Nami responded. Okay, you guys go back to base. I'll meet you guys in 10 minutes, Luffy ordered. The crew nodded. He then walked towards the strong presence that he felt earlier, ending the Great Pirate Era. Nothing less expected from you, Luffy, a voice commented. Luffy looked up to see a large man in green cloak. Luffy smirked. Nice to see you too, Dad, Luffy replied. Luffy could see a slight hesitation with that man. Don't worry, I won't get in your way. Those grandpas don't have control on me. I only respond to Fleet Admiral, Luffy said. But I won't allow you to attack any marine or marine bases. Your goal is only focused on the world government. Luffy glared at him. The other figure smirked. You sound a lot like your grandpa, he commented. Shishishi, I guess so. Okay then, see you later. Luffy waved goodbye to that man. The man grinned before vanishing. Luffy walked back towards the base. That was quite the show you put on there, Smoker said. Luffy laughed. Yeah, I guess. Luffy then noticed a skinny woman standing behind him, sweating. Smoker looked at this. She is Sergeant Major Tashigi, he said. Oh, nice to meet you. I am Monkey D. Luffy. And nice to meet you too, she replied. That reminds me. Why don't you take this girl with you? She fits all your criteria to join your crew, Smoker said. Oh, well, if you say so. But I'll also have to see how she is myself. But sir, I don't want to leave. I want to stay here under your command. Tashigi replied to Smoker. I don't know when if I'll be leaving Loguetown. You have a dream. You cannot do that unless you set out to sail on the seas. Anyways, I am hungry. Let's go to dinner and talk over there, Luffy replied with a growling stomach. Roar no Zoro. What are you doing here at Marine Base? Tashigi yelled out angrily. Boy, if you want to yell at my subordinate, you should have my permission first, Luffy defended. Zoro smirked. He is your subordinate, meaning he is a part of Navy. But isn't he a pirate hunter? I was. Not now. Now I am a Marine serving under him, Zoro replied. Tashigi felt guilt filling her chest. She had yelled at a fellow Marine. Sorry, sir. I didn't know that, she apologized to Luffy. No problem, he grinned at her. So, what's next? When is your ceremony? Smoker asked. SHH. No one knows about it, Luffy whispered. The crew raised eyes at him, but decided to question it later. Okay. Also, about their ranks. I have received their uniforms and badges, Smoker said. Okay, guys, you go to his office and get your uniforms, Luffy said to his crew. They nodded. Also, we will be leaving in 2 days. While we are here, you will have training. So, tomorrow morning you will have to wake up at 5, Luffy ordered. Some whined at this. Zoro was excited. Oh, Tashigi, you could join as well, he said before walking towards his room. The rest of the crew got up and walked towards their rooms. Zoro was the last. Before he could go, Tashigi interrupted him. What do you want? If it is my swords, I am not giving it to you, Zoro yelled. No, I wanted to apologize to you. I am sorry for saying those things. I didn't know you were a Marine and I tried to take away something important from you, Tashigi said, with her head facing the floor. HMPH. As long as you realize your mistake. It's fine. It's not like you could take it anyway, Zoro smirked. What does that mean? Tashigi retorted. What I mean is you are weak. What? I will beat you up into pulp. Give your best try. You can't even touch me. Then he'll get stronger and he'll beat you. He'll beat the evil pirates and collect all the graded swords. He'll definitely fulfill my dreams. She yelled back. Dream? You look like shrimp. Haha, Zoro replied. But his tone wasn't mocking. He felt like he had someone to compete. Tashigi pouted and walked towards her room. Zoro smirked and went to his room. Unknown to them, a third presence was watching this exchange. He grinned. The crew woke up at 5, some complaining, but nevertheless the whole crew came to the training grounds in the base. It was pretty spacious compared to their ship. Tashigi also joined them in training. But they didn't start their training in the grounds right away. They were ordered to run 15 rounds around the island. Sanji and Zoro started immediately racing off to see who wins. Usopp followed behind them. Kaya, Nami and Tashigi also started running. Zoro and Sanji completed their run in 3 hours, while Usopp took an extra hour, finishing at 4 hours. Nami and Kaya took almost 6 hours to complete and Tashigi only ran 11 rounds before dropping due to exhaustion. Zoro and Sanji sparred with each other trying to unlock their armament haki. Nami and Kaya also fought against each other training their Rokushiki techniques. Nami was coming along really well with Kami-e and Soru, but her stamina wasn't enough to use those techniques for a long time. Kaya was starting out in Rokushiki techniques, starting with Rankyaku, but her leg was still weak and she was exhausted due to the running. Usopp was trained for observation haki by Luffy. He was swinging the wooden bat at his head while Usopp was trying to dodge it. Usopp could dodge 2-3 hits at most in 30 minutes, but Luffy considered it as a good progression. Tashigi was still very exhausted, but she tried to lift some basic exercises like push-ups and squats. Their training continued till evening. Everyone was pretty much completely exhausted. Tashigi still had a bit of energy since she didn't exercise as much as the crew ... and those monsters did. She stood up and took her sword. She walked towards Zoro. What? Zoro asked. I want you to spar with me. Why would I do that? He replied back. Because I want to get stronger, she said. Zoro unsheathed Wado and faced her. She looked at him in confusion. Why aren't you using all 3 of your swords? Zoro chuckled at this. This one sword is more than enough for you. Kashigi was red with anger. She charged at Zoro with full speed. Yet Zoro blocked her attack without bulging. You do put some force into your attack, but your footwork is pretty weak, he commented. Kashigi went back and charged at him again, only to be blocked by Zoro again. They continued their spar for 10 minutes. But at the end, Zoro defeated Kashigi. It was more like a one-sided battle. But Kashigi was smirking. She wanted to get stronger and follow her dream. Thank you for sparring with me, she spoke. Zoro didn't reply. He unsheathed his swords and walked towards the exit. She saw Luffy lying at one of the exercise equipment. She walked towards him. Excuse me, sir. Can I talk to you for a bit? Kashigi asked nervously. Sure, go ahead. Luffy replied, sitting up. I am not sure how to tell this, but I want to join your crew. Sure, you can join, Luffy replied like he expected this already. Wah, thank you, but aren't you going to ask any questions? She questioned. Nah, I already know about your dream, and your sense of justice is strong. You can join my crew, but don't expect the journey to be easy, Luffy replied. Thank you, sir. They'll train harder and become strong. She replied with a salute. You are welcome. And it's Luffy, I don't like being called as sir. Oh okay sir ... I mean Luffy, Kashigi replied. That was weird. The crew finished loading their supplies. The Marines were gathered on the port to send off Luffy and his crew. Kashigi walked up to Smoker nervously. I see you decided to go with them, Smoker started first. Yes sir. I am sorry that I didn't inform you sooner. Kashigi replied. No problem. Take care of yourself and most importantly, uphold justice. Kashigi had a few tears running down her cheek. Yes sir. I'll make sure no pirate harms innocent and I'll strive to complete my goal. Thank you for taking care of me. Smoker smiled at the young soldier. Well then, goodbye till we meet again. Kashigi nodded and said her goodbyes. She boarded the ship. Marines saluted at the captain as they unfurled their sails. All right everyone, this is our last stop before we enter Grand Line. Make sure you aren't missing anything, Luffy said. The crew nodded. Set sail, Luffy yelled to the Grand Line. The ship was sailing steadily towards the Grand Line. The weather was good. The wind was in the right direction. But the crewmates' mind wasn't. They were all too confused. Nami had been staring simply at the map, lost at her thoughts. Zoro was lifting his weights, but didn't really look like he was actually training his body. Sanji's body moved on instincts to make the food. Usopp and Kaya were talking to each other, but neither of them looked focused in their conversation. Kashigi was on the crow's nest, lost in her thoughts. All had a single question running on their minds. Who is Monkey D? Luffy? Luffy was sitting on the figurehead, reading some reports. He liked knowing about what others are currently doing on the world. The front page was nothing but him. There was a huge photo of him standing on the execution platform, with a wide grin on his face. The headlines read as follows. Has our savior born in the world? Will the grandson of Hero of the Navy be the one to end our sufferings? It had details about how he arrested several big-time pirates in the East Blue, how he was an incarnation of God, how pirates of Grand Line are going to suffer. Luffy merrily laughed at this. While his intentions are to help people, he was no god. He would put his life on the line of work. He didn't care about his life. But he wouldn't risk it, because there are many people dependent on them. But if it comes to saving someone, he will not regret it. He turned the pages. Kid pirates killed 50 civilians, several injured. His face frowned. A mysterious 5-people pirate crew. He looked at it confused. Civil war in Alabasta. Tension on the country is severely high. The news wasn't that good. There is still a long way to make the world a better place. He turned around to look at the crew. They looked as if they were lost in their mind, searching for a way to come back to consciousness. He walked closer to Nami, who was staring at the map. He waved his hands at her face, but got reaction. He placed his hands on her shoulder and shook her a bit. Nami yelped suddenly, as if she woke from a nightmare. She looked at Luffy, who was standing near her with a confused look on his face. The sound of her yelp made other crewmates snap back to reality. What happened to everyone? Everyone looked as if you guys are lost in your thoughts. He asked. Everyone got a bit nervous. Nami let out a nervous chuckle. What? Haha, no nothing. Must be the weather. Yeah, weather. But clearly Luffy wasn't convinced at the answer. He looked at her in the eyes, almost as if he was piercing her soul. Nami started sweating. Tell me the truth. His voice carried authority and order. Everyone gulped. Nami looked at him. She couldn't ignore his glare. It's nothing. It's just. She trailed off, not being able to find the right words to convey her thoughts. He didn't answer. He just continued staring at her. Okay, I trust you, but I want to know why Smoker and others saluted to you. I could understand his subordinates, but why him? Aren't you both same rank? And also, what is that ceremony that Smoker mentioned? She asked, her face covered in sweating, her body slightly shaking. While Luffy won't hurt his crew, he still carried great authority and order. Luffy sighed. He knew this conversation would pop up one day or other. All right, fine, he'll explain to you. He ordered the crew to assemble on the deck. He sat on the railing, looking at the crew. They looked at him with complete concentration. I am not a captain. I am of higher ranking than Smoker, Luffy said. The crew started at him in shock. Zoro and Sanji weren't that shocked compared to the rest of the crew. How many of you know the name of Scarlet Demon? He asked. Everyone started to think. Tashigi was the first one to answer. I know, he is one of the admirals of the Navy. His identity isn't known to the world, but he's said to be really powerful. Ranking at one of the most powerful admirals in the Navy, I would say he is the second most powerful, but not sure on that. Why did you ask that, sir? Nami and Sanji also mentioned about hearing the name. Luffy growled at the mention of sir. He stood up and went inside his cabin, which had been made in Loguetown. Everyone waited anxiously for him to come out. Luffy took off his captain's coat and hung it on the wall. He took out his admiral's coat. He also took his red mask and came outside. Tashiga's eye widened immediately on seeing the coat and the mask, followed by Nami and Sanji. Others were a bit confused, but by the reactions of other crew members, they could realize that man is at a really high position. He walked down the stairs, his admiral coat fluttering in air. Tashigi fainted due to shock. Turns out Scarlet Demon was her favorite marine, even above Smoker. She had read stories about him while she was on training. Stories on how he captured pirates, how he stood at the top of the Navy, protecting innocent people and upholding justice. He was the role model of every trainee, even if they didn't know his identity. Nami gaped in shock. She heard about a really strong soldier in Marines who was supposed to very young. She had wished sometimes that this soldier would come and save her village one day. Luffy decided to speak again since Tashigi woke up from being unconscious. I am Admiral Monkey D. Luffy, also known as Scarlet Demon, he said. Everyone called back to the explanation Luffy gave about Marine rankings. Admirals only take orders from fleet admirals, and they are supposed powerhouses of the Marines. I would have revealed about this later. Since the world still doesn't know my actual identity, you guys are safe. If this goes out, people will be targeting us more, or it could have the opposite effect. But you guys still are not strong enough to face the dangers of Grand Line. So, it's better if this stayed secret between us. He spoke. Everyone nodded firmly. Yes, sir. So, you are one of the admirals, then? How strong are you actually? Zoro was the one to ask this. He wanted to know how powerful his captain is, so he doesn't fall back on his power to assist him. Let's just say, nothing in the paradise could pose me a threat. I could fight Yonko, but still, I have to train more. I don't think I will be able to beat them at this stage. Zoro's eye widened. Nothing in paradise could beat him, huh? What a crazy man I decided to follow. He smirked at the possibility of getting stronger. Everyone else looked at him in shock. Nami, how much longer will it take for us to reach the entrance of Grand Line? And also, did you buy a log pose? Luffy asked. Yes, I did buy a log pose. The navigators in Loguetown instructed me to get one, but why do we need that? Also, I think it will take one more day to reach the entrance, Nami answered. Good. As for why we need a log pose, you will see once we enter the Grand Line, he answered. The next day was full of training. Tashiga's determination skyrocketed, and she started training even in night along with Zoro. She also started swooning over Luffy whenever he talked to her. Others could only sweat drop at her antics. The finally were closing in on the entrance. It was a stream of water going up the mountain. Everyone looked at it in surprise. Luffy smiled. Memories of him first time reaching here running before his eyes. We could have gone through Calm Belt if we had sea stone coating on our ships, but we won't be able to get it until we reach Water 7. So, we have to go through the mountain. Nami, be careful about the entrance. If we hit the sides, it's game over, he warned her. Nami nodded, feeling a bit anxious. They managed to position the ship on the stream. It didn't exactly go smooth, a lot of yelling from navigator, a broken rudder, but they eventually got in the right stream. Sanji placed a barrel of sake and placed his leg on it to find all blue. Everyone realized what he was doing and followed him doing the same. To draw the maps of the world, Nami said. To become the greatest swordsman in the world, Zoro said. To collect all the precious swords from evil pirates and uphold justice, Tashigi smiled. To become a great warrior of sea, Usopp said. To learn medicine and help innocent people, Kaya said. To end the great era of piracy, Luffy grinned. They all lifted his leg up and smashed it into the barrel, breaking it. Let's go. To Grand Line, Luffy yelled. The ship went up the stream and turned midair to drop back into another stream, entering Grand Line. They all heard a loud shriek. Nami used her binoculars to look ahead through the fog. Oh oi, why is there a mountain ahead? Nami said, shaking in fear. Mountain, we are going to crash, Usopp yelled. Mountain, Luffy looked ahead, concentrating hard. Then a smile came on his face. Oi, I Laboon. Luffy yelled loud. Laboon? Nami asked him, confused. Yes, it is a whale, not a mountain. I met him when I first entered the Grand Line. Oi, Laboon, move aside, it's me. Luffy shouted again. The whale looked down, seeing a ship coming down the stream. It focused its eyes on the man who was very familiar to it. It immediately went underwater, leaving way for this ship to go through. Okay guys, let's go to that shore below the mountain, near the lighthouse, Luffy ordered. He then got down and Laboon surfaced again, giving out a happy noise as it saw Luffy. He ran up to it and hugged it, rubbing his cheeks on its skin. The crew watched him in amusement. They then saw an old man coming out of the top of the whale, with 2 persons on his hands. The crew looked at him shocked. He jumped down the whale and dropped the 2 persons on the ground. What is happening? Why is that man coming out of Laboon? Usopp trembled. The man glared at the crew. The crew started to sweat a bit. Sanji decided to speak up. Why did you come out of the whale? The man did not reply. He just glared at them, crew glaring back, sweating. Answer it or we will fire our cannon, Usopp exclaimed. Don't do that or someone will die, the man replied. Everyone gulped. Oh, who is that? Sanji asked, nervously placing cigarette on his mouth. Me, the man answered. Everyone yelled at him. Sanji snapped. Can I go and kill him? He asked angrily. Zoro placed his hands on Sanji's shoulder and calmed him down. Oi Asen, who are you and what do you want? Zoro asked. Isn't it proper manners to introduce yourself first? He replied back. Oh yes, sorry for my poor manners. My name is Roro. Zoro started but was immediately interrupted by the other man. My name is Crocus, lighthouse keeper of Twin Capes. My age is 71. Zoro unsheathed his swords a bit and yelled angrily at him. Luffy watched this silently and burst out in laughter. Crocus-san, they are my crew. Why must you do this to them? He laughed. Crocus looked back to see a familiar face. Oh Luffy, didn't see you there. Why are you using reverse mountain? Crocus asked. Oh nothing, our ship doesn't have sea stone yet, so we couldn't cross Calm Belt, he replied. Crocus nodded. Luffy, what happened to Laboon? His face has a lot of scars. Kaya asked. Oh that, he was close to a pirate group once. Since this sea is very dangerous, they couldn't take Laboon with them for the journey. They promised him they would return once they finished traveling on the Grand Line. But they didn't return and it has been 50 years since. Luffy sighed. 50 years. Why didn't they come back? Kaya questioned, anger visible in her eyes. Grand Line isn't normal. I learned from a source that they escaped through the Calm Belt, but I doubt that. They could have died. I of course tried to explain it to him, but he didn't want to believe and started to hit his head on the red line. Crocus replied, if it wasn't for Luffy, he could still be doing it till this day. He was the one who convinced Laboon that he will search through the Grand Line and bring back any crewmate of that pirate crew if they ever come across them. The crew looked at their captain smiling warmly. Their respect for him increased every day. By the way, who are those 2? Nami asked, pointing at the 2 persons lying on the ground. Oh them, they are trying to kill Laboon for their food, Crocus growled. Luffy went near them and shook them, making them wake up. One was a guy with red-orange hair and green clothes. He had 2-9 drawn on his face. Other one was a really beautiful, slim woman with blue ponytail. They both opened their eyes slowly to look at the figure standing before them. Luffy observed closely at the blue-haired woman. She also looked at him. Then she yelled, Hey, Luffy-san, Princess Vivi. Luffy asked, wide-eyed at this meeting. He never expected her to meet here, let alone with a suspicious-looking guy trying to kill a whale. But here they were. Vivi looked at Luffy, jaw dropped. She also didn't expect to meet her childhood friend. Escort, the one who teases her always for being weak. Yeah, Luffy's mind was still processing what happened. His crew looked confused. Sanji had star in his eyes. Nami's eyes lit slightly in the mention of Princess. Usopp and Kaya just looked confused. Zoro, he didn't care. Luffy turned towards Crocus. Don't worry, old man, she is no harm, at least not from now, Luffy said. Crocus nodded his head. Luffy then turned towards Vivi and the guy. You have to explain to me what is happening here. Meet me at the ship, he said, but it sounded like an order. Vivi and the guy nodded. Vivi was sweating bullets. She knew about Luffy, he is kind and helping, but she never wants to meet his angry side. They aboard the ship. Luffy orders Zoro to keep watch on the other guy while he speaks to Vivi. Vivi and Luffy went into captain's quarters. Luffy offered Vivi to sit on the guest chair and he went and sat on his own chair. He was looking at Vivi, his eyes glaring at her with anger. Vivi looked down, not wanting to meet his gaze, her feet tapping nervously on the floor. So, Vivi, what do I owe the pleasure to meet you? Princess of Alabasta Kingdom, in Twin Capes, with a suspicious-looking guy trying to kill a whale? Luffy asked. His voice was cold of anger, but he was patient enough to wait for answers before yelling at her. Now, normally no navy has authority to yell or shout at a princess of kingdom, which is affiliated to world government. But that wasn't the case with Luffy and Vivi. They both know each other well, and if Luffy was to guess, he was sure Vivi was being reckless and endangering herself in something. But not for her own sake. Vivi gulped. Luffy wasn't exactly known for his patience, but she wasn't afraid of him hurting her, but rather that she doesn't want him to worry about him. She knows very well how Luffy cares about her. But yet, she wasn't sure if she wanted to reveal anything about what she is doing here. I was just out with my friend, seeing the oceans. Yeah, that's all, Vivi answered. Luffy's glare never left her. He isn't convinced, isn't he? You know, if I didn't know you, I would have believed you very well. But I don't want you to lie to me now. Clearly you just don't disappear from the kingdom with a friend just to see the oceans, Luffy said. I am sorry, Luffy-san, but I can't talk about why I left. At least not yet. Please, don't inform about it to anyone. Vivi pleaded. Luffy can be hard to persuade. She mustered up the best puppy eyes she could. But her face was covered in sadness. Sadness in disappointing his friend. Luffy looked at her for a minute. He then sighed. All right, I won't tell to anyone. But you promise you have to tell me when you feel so. Okay, I will definitely talk about it to you, Vivi answered with a smile. With that said, it has been a long while we met. Blue crybaby Luffy grinned. He stood up and held up his arms for a hug. Vivi also jumped and hugged him, with a bright smile on her face. Yes, it has been really long. They broke the hug, and Vivi pouted. And I am not a crybaby, she huffed. You sure are. Luffy laughed. Come, let me introduce you to my crew, he said. Vivi nodded and followed him. When Luffy opened the door, all the gazes fell on them. They looked confused about the whole thing, waiting for answers. Luffy then spoke up. Listen everyone, gather up here, take that guy to the room below the deck and let him stay there for a while. Zoro nodded and did the same. Then they gathered up around them. Everyone, meet Nefertari Vivi, Princess of Alabasta Kingdom. He introduced her. Vivi, this is my crew. The green-haired one is Zoro. Blonde guy is Sanji. Red-haired is Nami. Long nose is Usopp. The spectacle is Tashigi. And stick there is Kaya. There was a collective oi at their nicknames. Nice to meet you all, Vivi spoke up. Nice to meet you, my beautiful princess. Vivi ch1 Sanji ogled. Luffy sighed. So Vivi, what are you going to do now? He asked. We are going back to Whiskey Peak. So, can you release that guy over there? She asked, pointing at the door. Luffy wanted to question, but he just nodded and released him. That guy went to Vivi's side immediately and started to whisper something. This Wednesday. What is the meaning of these? He whispered. Don't worry, Mr. 9. I have met this Navy officer once. He thought I am a princess of some country. I acted on my part and just went along with it. Come on, let's escape now, she whispered back. Oh God, you are amazing at acting, Miss Wednesday. They went down the ship, only to look at their boat crushed by the waves at the shore. They both looked pale. Vivi boarded the Going Merry again. Luffy looked at her. Luffy-san, can I ask another help? Vivi asked, rubbing her head sheepishly. What do you need me to help? Can you take us to Whiskey Peak, please? She asked. Luffy raised an eyebrow. Why? Don't you have your own boat to ride? Well, it crashed on the shore and broke apart, she replied. Luffy looked at her and walked towards her. Vivi and the crew members become anxious. Was he going to hurt her or something? But what he did shocked everyone to their core. He took Vivi's hand and kissed it like a gentleman. Of course, princess. I would be happy to help, he said with a smile. Everyone's jaw dropped. Sanji started to hit the floor with tears on his face. Zoro just smirked. Usopp, Kaya and Tashigi blushed a bit. Nami felt her heart ache for a second. She couldn't tell why. She started glaring at Vivi. Vivi also blushed. Stop that, Luffy-san. You are embarrassing me, she muttered. Luffy laughed loudly. You always enjoy teasing me like this, don't you? She asked. Of course. It is always funny to see you redden up like that, he answered. Vivi also smiled. She then looked at Nami, giving her glares. But when they both met eyes, Nami immediately turned her head sideways, flushed and getting caught. Vivi smiled at that. Get that idiot also, and Luffy pointed at Mr. 9. What is your name? Mr. 9, sir, he replied. What is your real name? I am afraid I cannot answer that to you, sir, he said. Luffy raised an eyebrow. He looked at Vivi, but he understood he isn't going to get any answers. Suddenly it was interrupted by a high-pitched scream. He turned around to see the source of scream. It was Nami. Nami, what happened? Why did you scream like that? Luffy questioned. The compass. It is spinning in all directions. I cannot navigate like this. What is happening? She yelled out in nervousness. Haha, you are Marines and you don't even know how to navigate, Mr. 9 laughed. Luffy turned to him, glaring, which immediately shut him up. Okay, calm down, Nami. Normal compasses do not work in Grand Line. The magnetic fields here are screwed up. That is why I asked you to buy a log pose. It locks onto the island's magnetic field and points towards it, he said. Nami's eyes brightened up. So, they weren't lost here. She calmed down. She turned towards Luffy and hugged him tightly. Thank God, Luffy. You are awesome. I thought we are done for good since compass didn't work, Nami said, hugging him. They both stayed like that for a minute. Other crewmates just watched them with slightly wide eyes. Nami, I am glad I could help. But can you? Luffy said. Nami immediately realized the position she was in. Shit, she thought internally. Her face becoming beetroot red. She broke the hug and stood before him, seeing down in embarrassment. Sorry, I was too excited, she apologized. No worries. Luffy laughed. Lock the pose to Whiskey Peak. Let's go there. Yes, Captain, she saluted and got on to work. Luffy waved goodbyes to Crocus and Laboon. All right, let's set sail to Whiskey Peak. The ship had been sailing in the waters of Grand Line smoothly, Zoro and Sanji training with each other, while Nami and Tashigi had been lifting up some weights. Vivi was watching the ocean calmly, thinking. She was approached by Luffy. "Hello, Vivi," Luffy said, earning a yelp from Vivi due to sudden approach. "Ah, Luffy-san, you scared me for a second." "Shishishi, sorry," he apologized. "Looked like you were thinking hard on something." Did it really?" "Might be," she said with a sad frown. "I know you have your reasons, but I am not dumb that I don't know about what is happening in Alabasta," Luffy said. Vivi turned to him in a slight shock. What are you saying, Luffy-san?" she muttered nervously. "Rebellion. The newspapers are filled with news about them. Something tells me you are doing this because you know something about the rebellion that others don't," he said. Vivi just stared down, contemplating her thoughts and choices. Yes, she had known about the rebellion and what triggered it. She wanted to get back Alabasta as soon as she can and save her country. She continued to stare down, lost in her thoughts. "Vivi," Luffy's voice bolted her up and looked him on the face, his eyes wanting answers. "Why, yes, Luffy-san. I can't talk about it. I cannot risk anyone's life. I must do this on my own," she answered. "You do know we are friends, right? And moreover, I can guess it involves lives of a lot of people. You know very well I would risk my life to save any innocent life," Luffy said with determination-filled eyes. "Yes, I do know. But still, I am very close on this. I can only hope it all goes well," she answered. "Very well. Lunch is almost done, I guess. Meet you at the kitchen," he said with a smile. She smiled back. "Sanji. Meet." Luffy bounced in his chair. Yes. Wait," Sanji replied, serving them dishes. "I've also joined them up for lunch." Mr. 9 was given his food, but he was forced to sit on the deck and eat his food. They all ate their food, chatting with each other. Then Luffy spoke up. "Nami, you might want to check the log pose." Nami looked at him confused. You starting to doubt my navigation skills? I am sure we are moving in." "Ahhh." There was a loud scream from her. Luffy closed his ears before she screamed. "What the hell? We are moving in the wrong direction." "Sanji, turned the ship 180 degrees, she yelled. "Hi, Nami Swan. How the hell did we turn completely opposite?" she yelled, confused. "This is Grand Line, Nami. Stuff like this is pretty common. You can never let your guard down on these," Luffy explained. Nami could see her hair turning white from all the tension soon. She cried comically. They struggled through several storms and harsh weather. They finally neared Whiskey Peak. They saw the citizens shouting happily and waving their hands. Luffy didn't really mind those. Some towns welcomed Navy pretty cheerfully. Yet something about this town felt off. Luffy looked at Zoro and Tashigi, who immediately understood what it meant. They nodded at him. Sanji started swooning at the ladies and Usopp waved at the crowd. Luffy sighed. Lost causes. If they let their guard down or fall to their trap, they are getting severe punishments, he thought internally. "Welcome to the town." Marines, a guy with curly blonde hair and a small red nose, approached them. "I am Ma, he cleared his throat. "I am Igarappoi, mayor of Celebration Town, Whiskey Peak. You brave warriors of sea are welcome here," he said. Luffy recognized him, but decided to stay quiet. "Oh, thank you for the welcome. I assume those two are from this town?" Luffy asked, pointing to Vivi and Mr. 9. "Ah yes, sir. Ma. Certainly, they both belong here," he replied. "Can I ask why they are trying to kill the whale near Twin Mountains?" Luffy questioned. This town is starving with very less food. So, we needed something to feed us. And we thought that whale would be a really good food source and would feed us for months." "I see. You are not allowed to approach the whale anymore. I will call Marine headquarters and make some arrangement for food here," Luffy replied. "Oh, thank you. That would be certainly helpful." He turned to the crowd behind him. "This Marine officer said he will help us with food. This calls for party," he yelled. The crowd cheered. Didn't they say they were low on food? Luffy's sweat dropped. A crew followed them to a building which was supposedly a party place. Zoro, Tashigi, and Nami started drinking in competition. They competed with the local people. Tashigi went down pretty early. Nami and Zoro drank a lot, until Zoro also dropped down, followed by Nami, who was the last to drop down, winning the drinking competition. Sanji was covered with girls on him. He fainted in excitement with all the girls on him. Usopp was telling his stories of subduing pirates. Kaya just listened to him giggling. They both fell down, probably to sleep. Luffy ate quite a bit before sleeping. Outside, Mr. 8, a man called out, "Why are we feeding them? Can't we just kill them and take the supplies from their ship? Don't underestimate them. They are Marines. If we kill them, a group will come to search them. Then it could ruin our plans." Mr. 8, Igarappoi replied. "Yeah, they are a bit strong from what I saw them training." Mr. 9 came walking towards them. Mr. 9, I can assume you weren't able to complete your mission. What are you going to say to the boss?" Mr. 8 questioned. "We didn't fail, we just did our best." They both looked back at the sudden explosion that happened behind them. They saw a tall, dark-skinned man with black hair and short spiky dreadlocks. They immediately recognized who it was. Mr. 5. What do I owe the pleasure for your meat? Mr. 8 asked, a bit startled from the explosion. Boss gave orders. Apparently a certain kingdom's royal members entered the organization and found out Boss's identity. We are here to eliminate them, Mr. 5 smirked. Mr. 8's face immediately paled. Oi, I just wear a crown F for decoration. I am no king, Mr. 9 protested. We are not here for you, Mr. 9. You know who I am talking about, don't you? Kaya, Royal Guard of Alabasta, Igaramu women spoke. She was short with blonde hair and dark eyes. Igaramu immediately pulled his hair, which revealed hidden shotguns. He filed it towards them, but Mr. 5 shot out a bogger which exploded in air, causing the bullets to scatter away. Another group was watching it calmly from the roof of a building. Luffy, Zoro and Tashigi were watching some interesting things happening on this town. First, Luffy recognized this organization that they were talking about with the help of Zoro. Mr. 5 picked up another bogger from his nose and aimed towards Mr. 8, but Luffy spoke up. Interesting. You throw boggers and it explodes. I didn't know they recruited such people. Baroque Works. Who are you? And what do you want now? Mr. 5 shouted. You know the name of our organization. We cannot let you live. Oh, sorry, but I cannot let you hurt any innocent people, let alone my friend, Luffy said. Mr. 8 looked in confusion. TCH, annoying. Then, kill those Marines. Igaram and Miss Wednesday are traitors. We will take care of them, Mr. 5 said. Zoro, Tashigi, take those guys out, but don't kill them, Luffy ordered. The duo nodded and jumped down. Zoro tested out his new swords. Yubashiri was light and flexible. Kaitsu was bloodthirsty. Zoro and Tashigi defeated enemies left and right with ease. Mr. 5 gritted his teeth in anger. He threw the bogger towards Mr. 8, who closed his eyes and crossed his hands to brace the impact of explosion. Igaram, Vivi yelled, but the explosion never reached him. He opened his eyes to see the captain's coat fluttering in wind. The young boy stood in front of him. Mr. 5 smirked. One down, one more to go, he thought. The smoke surrounding the explosion cleared to see the Marine captain standing in front of Igaram with no damage. A black slowly faded from his chest. Mr. 5's eyes widened. Where did you come from? How did you survive the explosion? He barraged questions. That measly explosion isn't gonna do anything to me. Luffy smirked. The girl, Miss Valentine, leapt up in air floating. Then she came down, her legs pointed at Luffy at high speed. She smirked. She was going to crush him with the power of her devil fruit Kilo no Mai. She was caught by Luffy with one hand, his hand covered in black color. Her smirk immediately dropped. She wide-eyed him, gulping. He didn't even bulge at her weight. Well, you devil fruit increases your weight. But this weight is nothing compared to the cannonballs that my grandpa threw at me, Luffy grinned. He threw her on the ground, her back arching on impact. Luffy covered his punch in haki and punched her in the face, putting her out of consciousness. Mr. 5 charged at Luffy in anger. He punched Luffy on his chest, causing a huge explosion, but Luffy was unfazed. He punched Mr. 5 in the gut, sending him towards the wall of a building, crashing it. You have a pretty good devil fruit, but that isn't enough to beat me, Luffy said. Mr. 5 woke up from the debris and spit out blood. He gritted his teeth in pain. He knew it would be hard to beat the captain. He turned towards Vivi, who looked him in horror. He smirked at her and charged at her. But before she could hit her, a staff hit him on his face, stumbling him backwards. You are not going to hurt her, a female voice spoke up. Oh, Nami, I thought you were sleeping, Luffy said, smiling. Of course not, old habits. I wanted to steal something. But then again, we are good guys. So just came outside to see this idiot charging at Vivi. Decided to stop him. She replied, good, I see you are getting better at Zoro. I did see your speed. Your hit was good as well. Luffy complimented. He then looked at Mr. 5. All right, it's time to end this. Luffy charged at Mr. 5 using sword and gave him an uppercut followed by a hit on chest. He flew backwards and hit the ground, rolling on the floor like a ragdoll. He went unconscious. Luffy-san, Nami-san, Vivi spoke up. Thank you for saving me and Igaram. Luffy, you mean that Luffy? Igaram asked with wide eyes. Yes, I am that Luffy. Nice to meet you again. Igaram, he smiled. Wow, you grown up pretty well. Igaram commented. So, Vivi, care to explain at least now? Luffy asked, his face serious. Zoro and Tashigi finished up their fights and surrounded Luffy. Yes, Luffy-san, you guys deserve to know it. You saved our lives. Vivi started. This organization, Baroque Works, is the one responsible for the civil war going on in Alabasta, she said, earning gasps from Nami and Tashigi. I wanted to find out who caused this, so I entered this organization to find out who was their leader. Vivi said, can't believe this crybaby would do something that brave, Luffy commented, causing the crew to snicker. So, who is that leader? I can't tell you that, Luffy-san, she said with a frown. Why not? I cannot tell you that he is Crocodile of the 7 Warlords. He is a part of Marines and your crew safety is important, she said. Others' sweat dropped at her antics. So, Crocodile is the one who is doing this, Luffy said. I said it. Vivi yelled. Nami cried, comically shaking Vivi. A pair of otter and vulture snapped their pictures. That's unluckies. Now they know about us. They will send people to capture us, Vivi cried. Well, now that I know who it is, don't worry, I will protect you, Luffy assured. But, Luffy-san, you are my friend, and more importantly there are people at risk. Innocent people. Do you think you'll just let them die when I have the chance to save them? Luffy grinned warmly. Vivi smiled. Then please help me. Sure, let's board the ship. Zoro dragged the two idiots from there to ship, Luffy ordered. 2. What about Kaya? He asked. Kaya, she already woke up. She is in ship now. Not sure why, Luffy answered. Zoro nodded and went to take them. Zoro picked up those two idiots, being Sanji and Usopp. He boarded the ship with Luffy ordering something to Nami. Wait, where is Karu? Vivi said frantically. And Igaram. Karu, you mean this duck? Zoro pointed at a big duck of yellow-brown plumage with black-tipped wings and tail feathers. Karu. Vivi hugged it hard. Quack. Luffy's face frowned in disgust for a second. Nami noticed it and looked in the direction he saw. Her face also frowned. Igaram was standing there ... with a girl's outfit looking like a cross-dresser. It looked ridiculous on him. Vivi noticed him with wide eyes. Igaram, what are you doing? Vivi questioned. Vivi-sama, I have to do this. Since Baroque Works know about us now, it's better if I create a distraction while you guys get to Alabasta. You need to be safe, Vivi-sama. Please, give me the eternal pose to Alabasta, Igaram said. But Vivi tried to protest, but realized it would just go in vain. Fine, but be safe, Igaram. Sure, Princess Vivi. He bowed in respect and left in a small boat. Boom. There was huge explosion at the direction in which Igaram sailed off. Everyone except Luffy froze in shock. IGARAM. Vivi yelled desperately. Luffy activated his observation haki and searched for his aura. He got relieved when he noticed a faint yet alive Igaram's aura. Set sail, immediately, Luffy ordered. The crew got partially out of the shock, but their movements were still sloppy and slow. Move, Luffy yelled, immediately bringing everyone to senses. Zoro unfurled the sails. Tashigi and Kaya worked together to tie them. Nami checked her log pose and told Zoro to turn the rudder towards the direction in which the log is pointing. Usopp and Sanji groggily woke up from their sleep to get a glare from Luffy that said, I will deal with you later. They gulped. Luffy's senses picked up another aura. It felt familiar yet distant. He knew he had met the person who had this aura before. As it got nearer and nearer, it became more and more familiar to him. Then the realization hit him. He smirked slightly. He felt the aura slowly creeping up the boat and sitting on the railing of the top deck near the captain's quarters. We need to be careful not to crash the ship into the rocks, a voice called out. Nami didn't seem to realize the voice was foreign. Yeah, leave it to me, she yelled back. Luffy patiently waited for the things to roll out. Yeah, there are fogs ahead. It might be dangerous, Vivi said, still frowning from the previous explosion. Nami titled his head in confusion by the way. Tashigi, how did you know there were rocks when you couldn't see what's ahead? She asked. What? I didn't say anything. I thought it was Vivi who mentioned about the rocks. Tashigi replied, looking at Vivi. No, I just spoke about fog. I know nothing about rocks, she replied, confused. Then who? Nami turned behind her. This is a nice ship, a voice said. Luffy sighed and closed his ears. AHHH. Who is that? Nami yelled, pointing at the top railing of the ship. Everyone's head snapped at incredulous speeds towards the railing to see a woman wearing purple cowboy outfit with a perfectly matching hat. She had a small smirk on her face. Took you guys long enough to figure it out. I guess I have to increase your training more, Luffy said. Everyone frowned. His trainings are not what they look forward to every day. Ara looks like the captain of the ship noticed me then, the women said. Immediately everyone pointed their weapons at her. The women frowned, crossing her hands to form a X. Suddenly everyone's weapons either dropped to ground or their limbs were hard to control, making their stance fall apart. I don't like sharp things pointed at me, the women said. Miss All Sunday, Vivi gasped. What are you doing here? I am surprised to see you here, Miss Wednesday, Miss All Sunday said. I met Mr. 8 a few minutes ago. Why wait? You are the one who did that. What did you do to him? Did you kill him? Vivi yelled angrily. Calm down, Vivi, Luffy said. He is alive. Vivi looked at Luffy questioningly, but his gaze relaxed her. Oh, how can you say that? Miss All Sunday asked. Now, why would I reveal my techniques to my enemy? Luffy smirked. The women smirked back. True. I wonder why you guys would be risking your lives to protect her. Wonder why? There is nothing to wonder about. We are Marines and we are to help people, Luffy replied back with a determined tone. But Miss All Sunday was unfazed. Her eyes narrowed. Protect people, she said. What is someone like you doing here? Luffy questioned, his glare strong, with a slight smirk present on his face. I am just here to check on the progress Mr. 5 made. But it clearly looks they weren't successful, she replied. Whose partner is she? Nami questioned. Mr. 0. Crocodile, Vivi replied. Then he gasped. You didn't answer my question properly. Maybe you might have misunderstood. What is demon child Nico Robin doing at my ship? Luffy asked. The woman's smirk immediately dropped, changing into a frown. How do you know that? She asked, a bit threateningly. Did you seriously think that the cowboy suit is going to hide your identity? Luffy questioned. No, but your smirk tells me you are awfully familiar with who I am, Robin answered, her gaze unwavering from Luffy. Oh, I haven't introduced myself, didn't I? My name is Monkey D. Luffy. Robin's eyes widened for a second before returning to normal. Oh, looks like someone got their promotions using their family ties, she said, in a cold voice. Luffy just laughed. Did you seriously think I would go for such low thing? Luffy said maybe putting it that way wouldn't make you understand. Just a sec. Luffy vanished from his spot and reappeared 5 seconds later. I am not here for your jokes, Robin muttered. Oh, sorry, but I am not making any kind of joke and you will understand why in a second, Luffy said, earning confused glances from his crew. Luffy pulled out a red mask from his vest and placed it on his face. Robin was shocked would be an understatement. She immediately got off the railing and stepped back towards the wall behind her, sweat pouring all over her face. She recognized that mask all too well. The masked one, the Scarlet Demon. Her memories flooded before her eyes. Every time she would face CP9, she had to see the mask, and it wasn't a pleasant experience. She would barely escape every time she faces him, with a lot of injuries. Luffy had a slight smirk under his mask, looking like a cold beast. The mask gained the attention of Tashigi and Sanji, who had heard about it from Marines speaking about it often. Tashigi seeing the mask in person, she might have thought it would make her happy that the person serving under the mask was a brave man, woman risking her life to save innocent people. But the mask showed her a different feeling, coldness, bloodthirst, anger. It reminded her of the stories about the mask. That eye wasn't originally red, rather it was made red from the blood of the enemies that the masked man had killed, albeit criminals. She gulped under fear. This was not someone she would want to go against. Robin stood in shock, her mind still trying to comprehend what she had seen. Why you? You are him, Scarlet D. Demon, she stuttered, her voice filled in anguish. Yes, I believe you know me too well, Miss Nico Robin, Luffy said. Robin couldn't reply anything. Instead, she tried to flee from the scene. But an arm pushed her on the shoulders, pinning her to the wall stopped her from moving. She felt immense aura pouring on her, weighing her down. She looked up to see the cold eyes looking upon her through the mask. Don't run away from me, Luffy said, in a soft voice that felt threatening. His eyes were fixed at Robin. She was sweating, body feeling limp. He leaned slowly towards her ears. Now, give me one reason why I shouldn't arrest you right now, he whispered, sending chills through her spines. His crewmates could only gulp in fear, making a mental note to never piss of their captain again. Robin couldn't move. Her eyes were starting to get misty. She closed her eyes, anticipating an attack. She knew too well about the man standing before her. While the fact about who is behind the Scarlet Demon mask was still a mystery, it was well known that whoever was behind it was an Admiral of the Marines, a rank which didn't really set well with Robin. She felt the weight removed off her shoulders. She opened her eyes to see she was no longer pinned to the wall. She also saw Luffy sitting on the railing against her. Go, for now. I believe I have other important things like stopping a war for now. I will deal with you later, Luffy said. Robin straightened up her posture. Her eyes still displayed fear. She picked up something from her pocket. Next island is Little Garden. I believe if you want to save the country, you should follow this. She tossed a log pose towards Luffy, who expertly caught it. I had to trail her to get to know who is Mr. Zero. She is the only one in the organization who knows his identity. Vivi spoke. Don't get too worked up, princess. I let you follow me, Robin answered. Normally, she would have mocked something about the captain of the ship being weak, or little princess getting help from pathetic Marines. But she knew all too well how powerful the man standing before her is. You let me follow you, so you could reveal who I am to Crocodile, Vivi yelled. So, what if I did that? Robin asked. Be careful what you speak, Miss All Sunday, Luffy said. You are still on my ship and I won't take me long to arrest you. Robin didn't reply but turned back and walked towards the edge of the boat and jumped off. She landed on a giant alligator. Say that Crocodile that we are arriving to Alabasta soon and it is going to be fun, Luffy said with a cold smirk on his face. Robin nodded and went away on her alligator. What is her play? Monkey D. Luffy, she mused. Luffy-san, why did you let her escape? Vivi yelled. Vivi, calm down. She isn't going to do anything to your country. She is just playing along with Crocodile, Luffy said. How do you know that? I can guess based on her behavior. If anything, the world-famous demon child is known for. That is something related to Pomplips or something. Now the question is, why does Crocodile want Robin? He asked himself. Anyway, that is a problem for later. Also, I believe we don't need this log pose. I'll just break it, Luffy said, holding the log pose that Robin gave on his hands. Why, Luffy? We could just use it and go to Alabasta directly. Usopp spoke. Why not we directly go and fall into what could be a trap? Luffy asked. Usopp immediately closed his mouth. Speaking of traps, I believe we need to have a chat, don't you think, Sanji, Usopp? He said with a smile that sent shivers to the duo. Huh, why? I think I need to work on my ammo. Yeah, Usopp muttered. You can work on that later. Now can you explain how you both fell into an obvious trap while we were at Whiskey Peak? Luffy asked. They gulped. It is not going to go well. Other crewmates felt sorry for them. That's, like Sanji tried to say something. Yeah, because you had to swoon over multiple girls. Right, Luffy said, with a glare. Yeah, no, like, and you, oh so world-famous liar. I believe your stories reach till God, whom you might have met if we weren't there, Luffy replied. Usopp starting sweating hard. No, well, I don't need any excuses. You both will train double from tomorrow, with me personally. If you ever fall into such obvious traps again, then you might not want to know what would happen, Luffy said. They both nodded frantically, sweating in fear. Luffy pressed his fists hard, breaking the log pose. He went into his quarters and picked up his den mushi. He sighed and called a number. Puru gacha. Hello, Sengoku here. Who is this calling? The man answered. Hello, Senku-san. You remember me? Luffy shouted gleefully. You, damn brat, I told you not to call me, that Sengoku yelled. Hey, sorry. So, why did you call me on this line? You don't call this unless it is an important matter, Sengoku questioned. It is. Something involving a whole country and a warlord, Luffy said, his tone turning serious. What is it? Sengoku asked. The one who's behind Alabasta's civil war is Crocodile, Luffy said. Sengoku sighed and rubbed his temples. This is no good, damn it. But how did you know? Princess Vivi of Alabasta is now with me, Luffy replied. Vivi, didn't she disappear a few years ago? Sengoku asked. Yes, she infiltrated Crocodile's organization to find out who is behind this. She is really brave. I give her that, Sengoku said. But we do need solid proof to remove Crocodile from his position. Don't worry, I may have a way to get it, Luffy affirmed. Okay, the 5 elders are not going to be happy about this, Sengoku mumbled. Let this be a secret between us for now. I am heading towards Alabasta now. I will take care of this issue, Luffy said. All right then, I will leave this to you. I'll handle the headache of dealing with the elders, Sengoku replied. All right, Sengoku-san. Bye. They were heading towards Little Garden. Luffy had heard about it being a prehistoric island. It would take one more day to reach there. Luffy was sparring with Zoro. You still charge on me blindly. Try to think and anticipate my moves, Luffy said, effortlessly dodging the fury of attacks from Zoro. Damn it, we have been training for 3 weeks and yet I couldn't hit him, Zoro thought. Zoro jumped towards Luffy, with 2 of his swords vertical. Luffy dodged it by going in between the 2 blades and hit Zoro right on the chest, sending him towards railing. Not enough. You are leaving your body wide open for attack. If you are going to leave them your body open, then at least tighten your muscles to reduce the impact. Again, Luffy said. Zoro got up and charged towards Luffy. Tighten muscles or not leave my body open towards attacks, Zoro repeated on his mind. Zoro went for a diagonal cut, which Luffy dodged by jumping back, but Zoro immediately went for another cut from the opposite side. Luffy dodged it and clenched his fist to hit Zoro on the side. Tighten muscles, tighten, Zoro thought, closing his eyes. Luffy brought his fist towards Zoro, punching him on the side with the same force as earlier. But Zoro only skidded a few meters. His muscles tightened, forming an iron body. Luffy smirked. Nice, Zoro. The technique you used was Tekai. Your body is naturally strong compared to others in the crew. With this technique, you could handle a lot of hits, and also since you are a swordsman, combining this with armament haki would provide you a great defense. We will work on improving your Tekai for now, Luffy said. Zoro smirked on his improvement and nodded. Sanji came out from the kitchen, finishing his preparations of lunch. Sanji, come here, Luffy said. What is it? Sanji asked. You both are going to train now. I want you to kick him around his body, and I want you, Zoro, to try and strengthen your body, tighten your muscles, Luffy ordered. Sanji grinned in excitement. Oh, I get to kick that Marimo. Shut up, swirly brows. I am at least stronger than a pervert like you, Zoro smirked back. What was that? Green cockroach, Sanji said. Bring it on, dumbass cook. They both started their verbal fight. Luffy sighed. He punched both on their heads, stopping their bickering. Do those later. Now, Sanji, I don't want you kicking Zoro normally. Swing your legs like a sword slash every time you hit Zoro, forming an arc. This will help you with your Rankyaku training, Luffy said. They both nodded and started their training. Tashigi and Nami were training their Soru training. Luffy was surprised at Nami's natural affinity to Soru and Kami. Her nimble body helped her move fast, comparing with the speeds of Sanji. Luffy made them wear weights on their legs for entire days and carry on with their work in order to improve their leg strength. Tashigi sparred with Zoro in evening to improve her swordsmanship. Her dedication to training improved her muscle strength and her power output greatly. She also didn't look like a stick walking with a sword. She gained more muscles and trained whenever she got time. Luffy was surprised that she was sometimes close to Zoro while it comes to training times. All the girls gained muscles a lot, thanks to Luffy's training and Sanji's proper diet. Kaya also looked more fit and strong. She was helping Usopp with his observation haki. She also trained Kami and her devil fruit. She was trying to make use of her fruit offensively. Luffy insisted on improving her body strength by lifting weights. Usopp tried to protest for Kaya, saying she could accidentally drop weights on herself, but Kaya shut him up by saying she wanting to get stronger. Luffy smiled at their progress. They still needed to work a lot on their haki, but one step at a time. Okay, sadly the chapter is over. And if you enjoyed the video, just leave a like and subscribe with post notification, so when the next chapter is ready, you will be notified. Okay, see you in the next video. Bye.